Hello and welcome back to Blood and Ashes. This is episode 104, where we will cover New Spring chapters 6 through 12. I am your host Mo, and I'm joined once again by my raised friends Villy.
Raised to the highest level.
And Jody.
I feel like I've been raised from the dead today. Big beach missions. Yeah. Beached out yesterday, 9 hours, lots of sun, lots of beer, a little bit of sleeping in the shade, in the sand for an hour and a half.
Beer nap on the beach. Wow,
beer
the
nap
height of luxury.
Yeah, sending messages to people going like, what are you doing today? And they're like, I'm working, man. What the fuck are you doing? I'm passed out on the beach. So yeah, I'm not hungover, just I feel like
tired.
Jody,
a lot of lots.
The truth is, the sun really takes that out of you. The heat, the sun, our old skin can't retain
yes,
the
it's
moisture.
The sun. The sun is the problem.
Yes, I agree. Nothing to do with my age and the amounts of golden nectar consumed.
No, that's the only thing that kept you alive.
Yeah, there was a beach bar right there, and they had Alhambra on tap. Oh, so cold, and ice cold frozen glasses. Oh, how can you say that?
Is that your beer with the old man wiping his brow on the front?
No, that's Victoria.
Okay.
That's the cheap cans we buy. But when we're out on the beach, we splash for the Alhambra on tap. Yes,
yes.
Stuff.
I mean, I don't blame you. I would not be able to resist.
Ooh, and it went down so smooth and so fast.
I bet.
Yes,
I better get another one.
chapters.
This one's finished.
Yeah.
Quite right, Joe. Like these chapters, we finally, as I alluded to in our little introduction here, get to the test for the shawl, which I found quite exciting, actually. It was pretty cool.
I must say, I enjoyed all of this.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I mean, for me, I don't feel like an awful lot has actually happened. I'm surprised at how far we are through this book, and it's only in the very last pages of the very last chapter we're covering here that we go back to Lan after the first chapter. Like, we're halfway through the book, and it's all just Moiraine and Siuan still accepted, right? Until now, obviously, the raising. So, like, half the book is just in the tower. A couple of days after the foretelling.
Get to the discussion point of it. I think this book is really playing into my theory of the where we left off, the hardness of the slog. Imagine if we had to now take Egwene into the tower and have to relive all of this in between the happenings of wanting Rand to move forward, like the putting mice in beds and things like that. That's why it's like a welcome relief.
I don't think Egwene is going to be doing that. I don't think she's like going to regress to her childlike novice status just because she's been forced to be a novice. I hear what you're saying, Vil, in principle, but specifically Egwene in the tower, I am champing at the bit for that.
Yeah, because
actually
it's only
awesome
want
to read that.
It's awesome stuff.
Yeah.
But imagine it wasn't awesome stuff. It was taking.
I choose not to.
You know.
All right, well, we do have plenty of time in the tower in these chapters, so why don't we take care of our homework so we can get straight into it? What are we covering? Like 7 chapters today? 6 chapters? 7 chapters? It's a lot.
7.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I think that's about as many as that's like the highest number of chapters. Like I said before on the podcast and to you guys before the recording, the chapter contents is based on or like, you know, the number of chapters we have in the episode is based on the number of pages in the book, which I try to keep at a pretty steady number. But yeah, I don't think we've ever had this many short chapters and therefore this many chapter breaks. Like 7 chapters in one ep is significant. So
yeah, I felt it during the note taking process.
No,
I was like, this is significant. Thanks again, Moritz.
Okay, Joe, I promise you I will go take a finer look at the chapter allocations for next time. We can at least announce the chapters here, but I'll go revisit the allocations and make sure
No, my shit part is over now. I've checked the other chapters. It goes back to like throwing the burden on Villy a bit more. So like it's done now. It's too late, Moritz. Thanks for nothing. All right.
Okay, cool. So I don't have to do anything. That's what I heard.
No, you don't.
Well, I'll tell you one area in which I do a lot, and that is to do the research for everyone's favorite section called Callbacks. Okay, I went and I actually opened up my Newspring comic, and yes, the comic compendium does cover the whole book. So what I've got is the entirety of Newspring in comic book form, which is pretty cool. I kind of spoiled the very end of the book by looking at the end of the comic book to see where it ends. And okay, yes, very much so, the end of the book. But what I also noticed in the back, which I've not delved into because there's actually quite a few of them, is there are a bunch of emails from Robert Jordan to the guys that made the comic about why he made certain choices and stuff. So for the next episode, I'll go through those and see if I can find any interesting tidbits that, RJ might have corrected them on or steered them in for a specific reason, which might not be super obvious to us reading it, but it would be sitting in RJ's. I mean, they've got the emails like just copied and pasted, like from date to, the entirety of the email. So not even like excerpts or anything. They've got literally all the emails they got from Robert Jordan in the back of the comic.
Right.
Hope there's something cool in there. Then, we spoke about Shaidar Haran and how he travels. Right, so nothing to do with New Spring. Obviously, we were talking about it in one of the other callbacks in the previous episode. But I had mentioned that, the room sort of went dark when Moiraine and Siuan come to Graendal, and they come to tell her about Moiraine, and then Shaidar Haran also appears. So the order of events there is, first Moiraine channels out all the lights, and then Graendal, who is already holding Shaidar, does like that combat roll, like she dives out of her seat and she rolls on the ground, and then she channels another light source in the room so she can clearly see Moiraine and Siuan, and then she weaves compulsion on both of them. Like pretty pro move from one Forsaken against two other very, adept Forsaken as well. But then soon after that, she is cut off from the true source, and her light source that she created disappears. And then Shaidar Haran just speaks behind her from the dark. And then he creates a light source in the room as well, which is actually like a dark ball that somehow makes a weird light that allows them to see, but, drinks
The dark
the
light, yes.
The dark light, yes, that phenomenon. So I was thinking that maybe Moiraine had turned off all the lights not to attack Graendal, but to create enough darkness for Shaidar Haran to travel there. Using the shadows like a fade. Because we were talking about is he using the true power? Is he creating a gateway? No, it was Moiraine and Ishamael who were tearing the pattern. It's whenever they're traveling with the true power that you hear that. And then eventually after I read all of that, I was like, isn't there another place? Oh yeah, I better go look at how does he arrive when he appears to Semirog? Because remember when we read about Semirog the first time, she's busy torturing Cabriana Macandes and her warder, and then Shaidar Haran is there. And turns out when Semirog is torturing Cabriana, she walks out of the room where the captive Aes Sedai is being kept, and then down a hallway described as dark and murky. Shaidar Haran is already there, and after giving some brief instructions, he turns away and walks away through the shadows and is suddenly just gone. And she thinks to herself how unsettling it is that Fades can do that, and that it had nothing to do with the power. So Shaidar Haran is absolutely traveling like a Fade and just going through the shadows.
So he can't create his own shadows. Why would Moiraine put out all the lights for him? Does he need help from her to travel there?
Well, if it was bright and light in the room that Graendal is sitting, there are no shadows for him to travel through to get to his destination.
But we were speculating in the last episode that he just creates his own shadows. Is that powerful?
Well, I don't think that's true because Moiraine is the one that kills the lights.
Yeah.
And then even Graendal's light is very dim, so that the room is full of shadows. And then Shaidar Haran appears. So I don't think he can create his own shadows elsewhere.
Yeah, but that's the thing. When he comes now to the Aes Sedai and he puts the touch on Alviaran's head, they just in the room, and the room suddenly goes dark and he's there. The light that was lit, that room was lit.
Maybe there was enough shadow for him to arrive, and just like when he's there, he turns the air conditioning temperature and the light levels and everything to his preferences. They override everyone else's preferences.
Messing with the thermostat.
Look,
That'll piss him off.
There's always a neighboring door or a neighboring corridor or a room next door that's dark. It's like, oh damn, it's going to be inconvenient.
You hear him stub his toe in the room next door and then come.
He appears in the wardrobe and then sneaks out.
Her cupboard is always dark.
Surprise!
Don't look at me.
Like sleeping in cupboards back in the day.
Don't look. But yeah, the real thrust of that observation was that he uses the shadows to travel.
Yeah.
Whether he can create shadows remotely, I don't know. But I guess you can always find some kind of narrative reason why there would be a usable shadow around somewhere.
He was under the bed. That's where he appeared.
The only reason
out of
I made the connection with Moiraine was that it seemed like such an ill-conceived move by Moiraine at the time. Because Grandel's there. They're just there to deliver a message. Why did Moiraine turn out all the lights and then just stand there and get compelled by Grendel?
Yeah.
You know, her and Sindane. They were just like standing there like fools.
Yeah, that's true. They were just like, yeah.
Why did they do that? You know, they weren't attacking her or anything. So I thought that maybe she had done that to create an easy entry for Shadar. Let's see how he behaves in the future if he can dim the lights before appearing. Villy, on the question, you seem unconvinced that Tom didn't, or that Matt didn't know Tom's letter was from Moiraine when Matt observes Tom using it. So I went, and the text from the book is, he trusted Tom when the white-haired gleeman could be routed from playing snakes and foxes with Olver, or mooning over a much-creased letter he carried tucked in the breast of his coat. No mention of Moiraine or Matt knowing what the letter is about.
I went and did that homework myself and realized that. And I was just going to correct myself, but you've done it for me.
Okay. You need to give me a heads up in the future. Otherwise, I am going to, you know me, every little thing.
I didn't do anything.
All right. We were talking about Egwene and how long she was collared for in Falme. She was collared for 58 days. So not the full 3 months that it took Rand to get there, because it's while Rand and the rest of the group are in those portal stone worlds, you know, when it takes them 3 months to get to Tome Head.
Like a flickering.
It's actually during that trip while they are away that Egwene is lured from the tower by Leandrin and stuff. Those timelines don't start and finish, you know, at the same time. They overlap somewhat. So it wasn't the full 3 months, but still 58 days. That's how long she was collared there. Remember, we were talking about how long she was collared in Falme and whether she may have encountered a Raken or a Toe Raken, so that she would draw the conclusion that the bat she saw in front of the moon could be a Toe Raken. But Raken are not mentioned in the Great Hunt at all. So if Egwene did encounter them, she certainly hasn't thought or spoken about them. Another thing I thought that would let her off the hook is that she knows that the White Tower is going to be attacked, but not necessarily by the Sean-Chan. But that's not true. I went and I read her dream again, and her interpretation from it is like, oh no, the Sean-Chan are going to attack the tower. So she does know that. So I have to assume that she doesn't know what a Raken is, because if she's expecting a Sean-Chan attack on the tower and she sees something that looks like she thinks might be a, what is it? Drakkar. She should have put two and two together.
Yeah, and you would remember seeing a Raken, like if for the first time. That's a memory that stays with you.
Maybe it's just that the the boats sail quite fast, and the Rakens and the Toe Raken can't fly that distance. They've got to go island hopping and rest for a day.
Maybe.
Can they land on water? I mean,
like a
big one lands on a ship. So how do you move a force of Toe Raken and Raken over big stretches of water?
You need a Raken craft carrier or something. A big boat with a bunch of Raken lined
carrier.
There's no text that says they don't have one of those. I mean, just like this massive battle craft with like Raken sitting on the deck.
Down and below, a little elevator that brings them up. Got an elastic
before they take off.
Them all.
They've got a little wall that comes up behind them so they can boost off it. Okay, let's move on to something a little bit more straight up and down. Okay, everyone repeat after me. Say boo.
Boo.
Ka.
Okay.
Ma.
Ma.
Now say it fast.
Bakima.
Boo.
Yes.
Boo Kama.
No, Rishma. Gotcha.
No, it's Bukama, not Bakuma, like everyone was saying in the last episode.
Hey man, it's got to be Bakuma forever. Bakuma for life.
Every time it's going to be like, who? What? Excuse me? Who are you talking about? Who's that?
The Amelin seat is Tana for me now forever. It's never going to change.
I'm going to have to correct you every time. OCD.
I thought it is Tana. Oh no, wait.
Oh no.
When you said I didn't. Of course you're right.
There's so many names in this book. I mean, come on. Like,
Oh, wait until my chapter. I've got some names coming up.
Then the Cody, like you guys said, the oneness is so Cody is just the oneness in the old tongue, which is why Lanfear and Celine would have called it the oneness when speaking to Rand about it, and why Lan knows it as the Cody. How old is Lan in New Spring? 26. So just like my basic back of a napkin math last time pans out. 26 here and 46 in the Eye of the World when we meet him. Then the Aiel that came across the Dragon Wall for the Aiel War. So 4 clans of outraged Aiel boiled out of the waste to bring back Laman's head. Led by charismatic Tardad clan chief named Janduin, the expedition was complicated when several Wetlander armies mistook the Aiel for an invasion force and started fighting back. So Janduin led 4 clans over the Dragon Wall.
Janduin is Rand's dad, right?
Yes, that's Rand's dad.
Yes, it's Rand's dad. So I just got to continue because, there's also so many Shadow Dog names.
Yes. So Rand's mum and dad were part of that expedition.
So they would have been then a mix of societies. So whatever clan would have had. Okay.
Yeah. So the Aiel that came across, so 4 clans came across, right? And then the Wetlanders thought, oh, they're invading, when in fact they were just like a death squad, right? Like they were just coming across to get to Lama. That's the single-minded focus. The Aiel cut these resistance forces to ribbons, chasing Laman across the nations. So they did chase him. And by 978 New Era, they had pursued him all the way to Tar Valon, to the Battle of the Blood Snow, as it was later called. And there, the Aiel finally succeed in killing King Laman, and then the next day, they went home. So the Wetlanders call this the Aiel War. The Aiel call it justice. Since then, however, the Aiel have been even more hostile to Carinian than to other Wetlanders, calling them tree killers and oathbreakers. That we know. All right, so there are 12 clans in total across the Aiel. And only 4 of them came across. So a third, I mean, they're not all the same size, but 4 of the 12 clans came across. In all, the alliance fielded 170,000 troops, making this easily the largest assembly in the West since the War of 100 Years. So this is all the nations that made the Grand Alliance, right? 170,000 troops. In contrast, the Aiel forces who opposed them numbered less than 80,000. Right, so this great Aiel war was 80,000 Aiel troops against 170,000, and they only left, not because they were defeated, but because they achieved exactly what they came over to do, and then fired back home. There's no split in the warrior society, so each clan has members of every society, but they move with their clan. So the warrior societies don't ever operate as a society irrespective of clan. Within each, they are loyal and blood with their clan. And within the clan, you've got representatives of each warrior society. What you may have been conflating there, Vil, is the fact that when 2 clans are fighting each other, members of the same warrior society will not kill each other. They won't fight. So they're fighting the other members of the other warrior societies from the opposing clan. So the warrior societies don't ever pool their numbers from the various clans to act as a society. It's that when clans attack, they've got their societies with their specific roles and jobs and that sort of stuff that those warrior societies do against their opponents. Now, Jody,
what did I do?
You mentioned that the Carinian people were they also like the master clockmakers?
Here's the clockmakers.
Here's the clockmakers thing. I couldn't find anything. When searching for who are the master clockmakers in the Wheel of Time, I was looking around everywhere. And eventually Google AI told me it's the Ogier. Quite confidently, it's the Ogier that are the master clockmakers. And I was like, okay, I'm going to give up. And now I want you to remember this because I was researching something else that we'll get to in a later callback, and the clockmaker thing comes up. So you were not barking up the wrong tree, yeah.
All right.
Villy, I thought about your comment about reading New Spring as a first-time reader, starting the series with the prequel, and I think that's a bad idea. So everyone, including Robert Jordan, recommends reading them in publication order, right? So when you read the book, there is no real value in looking at it as a first-time reader because that's not what you should be. That's like us saying, okay, I'm going to read The Path of Daggers as a first-time newcomer to the Wheel of Time, right? Like it's just simply not advised. You can do it. You can read the books in reverse order if you want, But I mean, it's just not going to give you anything. And I feel like in these chapters in particular, where we are reading about, you actually called it out, Val, like some of the themes that we're dealing with in the main storyline are actually brought to the forefront here. Even reminding us about Moiraine and like what the role of this book plays in terms of like just keeping her in our mind. I think this book is written to be read at this point to talk about very specific aspects of even the lore and the world and that sort of stuff, because it seems very timely.
If you start reading it from the back and you read it page by page backwards, you get a whole different story, though.
I'm sure you do.
You can hear the devil talk to you. You can read it shaitan. Like play your records backwards.
The story of an all-conquering, magic-wielding sage that regresses through a period of depression and ends up as a sheep herder in a small town.
Right. When he retires happily.
Yes. I'll make a big point of saying I made a mistake and I misspoke in the last episode when I said that the oath rod does not cause the ageless look, which it does. Obviously, channeling does not cause the ageless look, and the oath rod does not slow aging, where channeling does. The oath rod actually kills them faster.
Yeah.
Then we thought Tar Valon is the largest city in Randland. Could that be? Jordan stated that Tar Valon has around 500,000 inhabitants, while cities like Camelin and Tyr have more along the lines of 300,000. Beyond that, the numbers are a bit uncertain. So even by RJ's sort of like loose math, Tar Valon is the biggest city. So it's not just, Moiraine being ill-informed or awed by the city.
I was thrown off by a large thinking footprint, and I'm like, island city. But I mean, Tar Valon has got the highest density of residents for its footprint. Then
it's the tallest city.
Well, yes.
It is. I mean, she mentions how the towers in Tar Valon eclipse even the topless towers of Cairhien. Then, we were sort of intrigued by like how quickly, I think Joe, you especially, how quickly Siuan sort of progressed from accepted to Aes Sedai to imminent seat. So I'm just going to lay out her little timeline here for us. So she was born in 957 New Era. So when we meet her in the Great Hunt, she's 42 years old. I had also made another mistake. I said we meet Siuan back in the Dragon Reborn. It's not. It's in the beginning of the Great Hunt when she arrives in Feldara. Right, so she's 42 at that point. She arrived at the tower and became a novice on the same day as Moiraine, which we know in 972 New Era when she was 15 years old. So Siuan rocks up at the tower, fresh-faced, 15-year-old, straight off the boats in Tyr. She's a novice and accepted for 3 years each. So she's raised to the shawl, which we will read about pretty soon, at the age of 21. In 988 New Era, so 10 years later, she's raised as the imminent seat at 31 years of age. She's 31 and only been Aes Sedai. I mean, we read in these chapters about someone being a sitter for only 70 years or something like that, right? Like there's, or maybe it was in my research, but like there's a lot of talk about like these extended periods of time that actually, are required for someone to be seen as senior or like having long tenure, I guess. But yeah, so 31, she becomes imminent seat. So it's only about 10 or 11 years after that she meets Rand. So things are happening super, super fast for Siuan. And it is as a direct result of a quick turnaround of a number of imminent seats. Tamra, we'll read about her fate in here, is replaced by someone shortly after the events of the story, maybe even during the events of the story. But then that person is also killed or dies within 4 years of becoming imminent seat or something along those lines. And so the sitters, the hall actually decides they specifically want to pick an imminent seat that is going to rule for 200 plus years. They want stability. So they specifically and purposefully choose a young person to be the imminent seat. Probably similar to Egwene, they thought that they could control her and guide her and stuff. Little did they know who they were dealing with, which is pretty fucking awesome. So, yeah, I mean, could this be Rand's Taveran nature needing specific people in very specific places? I mean, is the pattern like, weaving outside of the bounds of normality and tradition and that sort of stuff to sort of set things up for the future? I mean, it's very easy to say probably,
very possibly,
and just hand wave. Yeah.
I mean, he's going to break the world. And he's going to, render all former alliances and all that shit he's going to destroy. And he's doing it from the day of his birth unknowingly. Like, it's not like something he's going to do once he declares himself as a Dragon Reborn. So all this shit happened just because he exists.
It's very out of the ordinary, right? Like that much is obvious. And when you dig into the detail, it actually becomes more obvious. Like, yes, this is actually bonkers. Like, what were these ladies thinking? But cool for us. Then we were talking about Varen's Aes Sedai and Black Ajah oaths, right? So I went to go check, like, do the Black Ajah have an oath rod of their own? And of course they do. Moiraine has 3 binding rods.
Of course he does.
With like a bunch of other like gizmos and gadgets and stuff from the Age of Legends.
Like in a box under his bed.
Just like lying around in the laundry. Varen's and any Black Ajah sisters' Aes Sedai oaths get removed with their oath rod and replaced with their dark oath. So like I think we have already read somewhere about, was it Galena or someone whose oaths were removed when they made her re-swear or something like that. But yes, that is very much a thing. So obviously with Varen being Black Ajah having to need to be able to lie, all the Black Ajah sisters having quite desperately needing to be able to lie, those oaths are removed using an oath rod, and then their Black Ajah oaths are placed with the same thing.
So you can remove oaths with one oath rod, not the same oath rod that was used to put them on.
With
like any
oath rod. Yeah. It's just a binding rod.
Yeah.
Do you remember what the binding rods were used for?
But I remember that they had numbers on them. Is that me remembering incorrectly? But some of them
they did have numbers on them. One of them had a 111.
Serial numbers.
We thought that the one in the White Tower had, 111 is the marker on it. We thought, 111 could be the 3 oaths, like Roman numerals. And we got into the whole discussion about, like, but does the old tongue numerals correspond with our Roman ones? Probably not, blah, blah, blah.
No,
but they do have numbers on them. Do you remember what the binding rods were used for in the Age of Legends?
Weren't they to stop criminals from doing it again?
Yes.
Don't be naughty again.
Exactly.
Promise me you won't be naughty again.
They gave Semirog the choice, either be stilled, or what do they call it, severed, or swear on a binding rod. And she chose neither. She chose to join the Black Ajah.
Yeah, well, they pushed her into a corner. What was she supposed to do?
Exactly.
You never do that. You know the other thing they use the binding rods for? Apparently the house help. All those Aiel, Chuff, or what were they called? The servants.
The Gen Aiel.
Gen Aiel. Some of them had sticky fingers, just to manage the sticky fingers.
Well, they couldn't use the binding rods, actually, Vil, because the Aiel couldn't channel, but they had another Terangrial, which was a chair of some sort that could be used to do the same thing as what a binding rod does, but to a non-channeler.
Yeah, they used that one. Yeah, and if they didn't listen after
that,
they got the electric chair.
Or something like that, I remember.
The Chair of Remorse is the one that we've read about, that they used, the Black Ajah hunting sisters used in the depths of the tower to force
it's the
torture
device.
Sisters. It's the torture device, yes. That's the Chair of Remorse. Okay. Sticking with our Black Ajah theme, I couldn't find anything on exactly when Sheriam was turned to the Black Ajah, just more confirmation that she did it to quote-unquote get ahead. Somehow, Sheriam thought that by joining the Black Ajah, she would be promoted and do better within the tower. Like she would be placed in positions of power and that sort of thing. And Vil, you had sort of like alluded to the fact that the Black Ajah was specifically placing specific Aes Sedai in positions of power, like the Mistress of Novices. Because the Mistress of Novices here in New Spring that we're reading about, she's also Black Ajah, right? Yeah. But the Mistress of Novices is picked by the imminent, right? So Siuan picked Sheriam.
Yeah. And then the Black Ajah picked her.
You mean the Black Ajah picked Siuan?
No, Sheriam. She was like, Mary happy. Oh, and then Siuan picked her. Hey, Sheriam, you got to look after all these youngsters now. And she's like, oh, darn it. And then rap at the door. What if?
What if? Well, I don't know, like how Sheriam, after being made Mistress of the Novices, like what other ambitions could she have? To be a sitter, maybe? Certainly not.
Who wants to be Mistress of the Novices? Like,
yeah, I don't know.
Deal with that shit.
No, it's not a terrible job.
Who knows?
I mean, you
just to deal with all these kids all day long, being just handing out punishments and ugh.
Well, I mean,
it's a hard pass from me.
Yeah, but if you think about it, you're not going to get pulled into fighting people in the streets. I mean, someone needs to maintain order in the tower. So you're like
So
calm
the
at
question,
home.
Phil, is: was Sheriam first made mistress of the novices and then turned to the dark, or was she already a dark? Was she already Black Ajah before she became?
Well, I would
Mistress
say
of the Novices,
she
which-
was straight up in the light, walked into a new office, and she sat down, and then rap at the door. What if? And then she
Maybe.
was like,
I mean, that would be the smart move by the Black Ajah, right? Because she had
Yeah.
influence over young initiates in the tower and could either turn them or make them fail or like
Yeah.
do whatever it is, manipulate the numbers. Okay, then we asked about the Kandori bells, like the bells that they wear in their hair. So first of all, it's not the Kandori that do it; it's the Arafelans.
Whatever.
Tarabonus.
One of those two guys that from the borderlands.
The
that
two
no one cares
countries,
about.
we had a 50-50 chance of getting the one that was actually the ones that wear the bells in their hair, but it is the men from Arafel. Nobody in Arafel is allowed to wear a mask or obscure their face, a protection against fades walking among them, right? So like they don't let anybody cover their face or wear a mask at all, so that a fade can't like sneak in between them. They have a strong, so this is still the Arafelans, they have a strong sense of honor, lots of duels. So the bells are probably some kind of, I'm not sneaking up on you because I am A, not a fade, and B, will fight you in an honorable contest. You know, it's sort of like, I'm making no bones about like, I'm not going to try and sneak around or anything like that.
Yeah.
And that's sort of around what we thought as well. We thought about them doing that, but in the blight, right? Like, come at me, blight, come at me, Trollocs, here I am, you know, like that sort of like brash.
That could also be why I'm not going to say that are felons, but the Northerners think that the Aiel are dark friends because they hide their faces. Who was it that said
possibly.
that? Bukuma.
Bukama.
Bukama. That one.
Yes, I think it's one of those soldiers, like either him or that Rakim, that Saldaean soldier with a missing voice box, and you know, there's a couple guys we met there. So Jody, here's your bonus. While researching the Arafelans, I'd started incorrectly with the Kandori, but it turns out Kandor has a considerable mining industry in gemstones other than diamonds, including most notably sapphires, emeralds, and rubies. The city of Kanloom, close to the Blight, was a rich source of gems and home to some of the best clockmakers in the Westlands.
Hey, we found it in a very roundabout,
So roundabout.
sneaky way, very un-Arafellan way.
Yes. By me incorrectly assuming it's the Kandori with bells in their hair, I read about Kandor and found the clockmakers, even though I was specifically Googling who are the best clockmakers in Randland and like, you know, different variations of that sentence. Yeah.
I still
But
like
it's
the thing that
Ogier.
it's the Ogier. I like that more.
Oh, Google AI has thrown me some, because I mean, I'm not using it actively, but it's the first search result all the time. And they often talk about things like, oh, we only meet like Egwene in Towers of Midnight, or like, you know, like they make these like bold, straight up statements, and it is just categorically untrue.
See, the thing why I don't agree with the Ogier clockmaker thing, Joe, like fat fingers, big hands,
Oh, yeah.
clocks, tiny little conks.
Tiny little gears.
Like
yeah.
I'd stay with like big blocks of, you know, mortar and blocks and chiseling by all means. Yeah.
Masonry.
Clocks?
Yes.
Um,
No,
That's true.
leave that for the
halflings in
leave
this
that
book.
for the Kandori.
But maybe that's exactly what they want you to think, because those are the last people you would ever imagine wouldn't be making clocks. So that's why it's a secret. They're so expensive.
All right, well, that's enough from me. So let's hear now from our listeners in listener contributions. Busy boy Scott Wilson sends the following. Good day. I hope you're all well. I'm looking forward to reading New Spring. I read the short story years ago, but never the extended version. Short story?
short story?
Question mark? You guys know that there's a New Spring short story?
Is it not maybe the graphic novel?
No, because the short story comes up in a later callback. There's an actual short story that I'm going to try and track down. But yeah, I was just like, I don't know.
It's called TLDR. I
DR.
didn't have time.
Anyway, Scott continues. He says, my favorite part of Crossroads was Matt courting Tuon like it was a battle. I really have tried to like Tuon, but she feels so entitled that she's above everyone. When she finds out she could be collared because she can channel, she just says that she will not touch the source. And when the Sean-Chan blood, so like Tuon and Sura, find out about Suldam being able to channel, they cover it up because it's the source of their power. When I first read the books, I thought Matt would win her over and she would embrace freedom and learn to channel. Oh well, that's all I have for now. Keep up the great work and cheers. Because yeah, that super does not happen. Thanks, Scott. Yeah, I've always disliked the Sean-Chan and Tuon by extension. I like her as a character, and as the Empress, she has to be, by necessity, sort of cling to their ways. But man, I hate their ways. So I can't bring myself to approve of Tuon, especially when paired with my favorite character, Matt. I wish he could have made some more inroads there. So let's see on the reread. Maybe I can find some silver linings, especially since she now knows about Suldam and herself being channelers as well. I'm really going to try and latch onto any hint of sort of like easing on that they are less than people and I will train them like dogs and like all that sort of shitty Sean-Chan behavior towards channelers. Levi Wagner, whose name I always want to read as Levi Wrangler, because those are two brands of jeans, writes in the following. Hi Mo, I wanted to send a quick email before I forgot. While complaining about the stool collapsing talk made me think that Egwene should use air to stabilize the stool and tie off the weave, problem solved. Or make a chair completely out of air. Seems doable with what we know about the power holding people in place. Anyway, congrats on the 100 episodes. Hell of an achievement. I would have quit on episode 5. Excited for New Spring, Levi.
Shot, Levi.
After Villy had mentioned it again last time, or like when we spoke about it recently, I almost included in the callback section that when we read that line again in the last chapter of Crossroads of Twilight about Egwene sort of having to catch the chair, it's mentioned so briefly that she almost without thinking catches the chair before it collapses and continues with her work. So her interaction with the chair has actually progressed over time. So first she fell, right, on her ass. And then she almost fell. Now she anticipates it folding and prevents it while she's busy doing other stuff. So what we actually have is a subtle indication of Egwene's growing capabilities as an imminent. Right, like in the beginning, this sort of thing would like literally put her on her ass. Now she can multitask. She's busy dealing with people and dealing with the chair at the same time without breaking her stride, which is pretty cool.
Much like me in the kitchen. I mean, in the beginning, I used to chop my fingertips off all the time, dicing onions and garlic, and now I barely do it anymore. Therefore, I am...
Because you have no fingertips left.
Yeah. They grow back.
Because now I have no fingertips.
Cut off something that's not there.
Our favorite Kiwi returns with this contribution. Yo, I bought New Spring last weekend and started reading it last night, up to chapter 6 now. A thought. In chapter 4 and 5, I think both of them, Moiraine is written watching women, quote-unquote, with child and wondering if they were going to give birth to the dragon. But didn't she hear the foretelling? He is born. Is born. Surely she should therefore understand that the dragon has been born already?
Well, that's logical.
I have a response here, but I'll give you guys a chance to respond. So you think it's logical, Vil? Like,
well, it's
she should know that the baby is born already.
You just cannot take the foretelling words as literate, I suppose.
Yeah,
you got to take it as like a message sent. Like maybe it's like a message sent from the future. He is born.
Exactly.
Or what if it's from the past? He could have been born already. So by that measure,
a backtelling.
A backtelling, yes. Foretelling, back happening.
a rear telling.
A rear telling.
A rear ending.
And that is the show, everybody. Okay.
Billy's here till Thursday.
Vil, I had the exact same thought, right? So like I had actually also noticed that, Gerald. And as I said to Gerald in my response, I have to assume that the prophecies can sometimes come through in the present tense, but quote unquote from the future, if that makes sense. A foretelling by its very nature is a glimpse into the future. So if Gitara was channeling a vision from the future, I guess they'd assume it's already happened, even if they are acting like it's imminent or has just happened. So maybe they've burned their fingers in assuming as much before, right? So maybe they've assumed a foretelling has, meant something has happened right now when it hasn't actually happened, and maybe they learned that the hard way. So I went and I looked just like randomly in the Karathon cycle to find out like what is the verbiage, like how are these tenses portrayed? And there is actually a mix. Some of it is like this will happen, and some of this is it is happening or it has happened. And here's an example. So from the Carathon cycle, there's a section that goes, into the heart he thrusts his sword, into the heart to hold their hearts. Who draws it out shall follow after. What hand can grasp that fearful blade? So as we know, that's Calandor going into the stone of Tyr, into the heart of the stone, and Narishma following him. But it starts with, he thrusts his sword, into the heart he thrusts his sword, right? That is present tense. And then he who draws it out shall follow after is future. And then there's another section that says, power of the shadow made human flesh, weakened to turmoil, strife, and ruin. The reborn one, marked and bleeding, dances the sword in dreams and mist, chains the shadow sworn to his will. From the city, lost and forsaken, leads the spears to war once more, breaks the spears and makes them see truth long hidden in the ancient dream. It's all obviously Ruidian and the Aiel stuff, but that's all written in present tense, right? And that Carathon cycle foretelling happened years and years ago. Like it's been documented ages ago. So yes, there's definitely some foretelling that comes across in the present tense. So Moiraine couldn't have just assumed that the boy was already born.
Maybe they do like a foretelling 101 course where they all go like, never take this literally. You know.
I mean,
They probably study it.
Probably. I mean, they all know what it is, and then they know what the consequences of it can be quite dire sometimes. Like sometimes the women are, faint and stuff afterwards. Like there is a physical toll, and in this case, with the weight of the foretelling, Kitara actually died. Yeah. Wonder if others have died,
Guitara's
maybe.
ever fucked with the novices and just like stood still in the middle of a class and said, "She scrubs the pots," and
All her
falls down.
life, she grows
All
old
the
scrubbing
kids-
the pots.
All the novices freak out.
If the pots aren't scrubbed, we'll lose Tarman Gaidon. The world is doomed.
I think it would have been more appropriate if it happened with it scrubs the pots with its skin.
It puts the lotion on its pots. All right. Friend of the show, Marlene, writes in, too often I think of things to comment on and then never get to the message. Determined to keep up this time. Belatedly, I have to comment on your group analysis of Crossroads of Twilight. It was really insightful. I'd never thought of the appearance of New Spring at this point as a reminder of Moiraine. I think we have Villy to thank for that one. I do have a problem with prequel media and the studied effort to name drop people and projects in the current timeline, but I suppose that is the point. This book is a very fast read, probably due to the narrow focus of the story and the plot. And do we only have 2 points of view for the whole book? Question from Marlene. We know of at least 3. There's a short section in our chapters tonight that is from Swan's point of view. So
Yes.
Swan, Moiraine, Lan. Let's see if there's others. Marlene continues with, as we spend a few chapters focused on the list, it's rather ironic that they never think of the Aiel. Not only is the dragon not among the babies they are surveying, he's not with a mother. It's a good point. Like Tamra and Moiraine and Swan, nobody is thinking like, oh, what if he's, or maybe Tamra's thinking, we don't have insight into Tamra's thoughts, so maybe she's just doing what she can. She can't exactly follow the Aiel and go, hang on, wait. Any of you have any babies during this war? So maybe she is limited in that thinking, but it's true. Like, I mean, there's, the participants of this war, the one whole side of the war that could have delivered the Dragon Reborn and did,
Yes,
are not considered in this exercise.
I mean, Tam wasn't going to go and like, oh, I found this baby. And my wife wanted
Yeah.
one. So you're like, baby thief! And it's red flags and codes, code oranges and helicopters and the rest. So he was like, they're checking for babies, and like extra stuffed it under his arm and like ran faster, got a bigger horse.
But I mean, look, it's also like, it's not impossible that the characters in this book are so narrow-minded that they don't even consider the fact, right? Like if we had $1 for every time someone in the book was narrow-minded and set in their ways, we'd be wealthy men. So yeah, who knows?
Maybe she did consider the IEL, but it's an impossible
What is she going to
task,
do?
so
Yeah.
there's nothing you can do about it.
Do something about what she can do something about.
She went to the Green Ajah and said, can you go into the waste and go and just record babies? And they were like, hell no, doing that shit.
We're warriors, not clerks. Marlene continues with the obvious call-outs. In Chapter 6, note the appearance of Laris, who will feature prominently in Knife of Dreams, and who has featured quite a bit already with Elmindrada. Remember, she was helping Min. Marlene also says, cool that Elias is noted here, and then honestly confused by Elaida's actions with Moiraine and Siuan and their practice sessions. Seems like a deliberate author choice to generate ill will between the characters given the past or future events. This is me now. I think her motivations are ego-based. Until Siuan and Moiraine, she was the quickest one to the shawl in a long time. These girls are stealing her thunder, and she does love some recognition. So in the current timeline, she's basically building a monument to herself, right? Like she's building this huge palace. So she loves to get credit and be recognized for her, self-proclaimed greatness. But with Siuan and Moiraine, I think they are threatening her reputation by just being, the new kids on the block. Marlene says, it's speculated that the oval ring to test accepted was a gateway. Found this on a wiki. The Terangrial probably uses Tel'aran'rhiod for creating virtual reality. Quite the test. Murderous even. Yes, the alternate realities, Tel'aran'rhiod, and even the Portal Stone worlds are all sort of related, right? I think we've spoken about this in other episodes. Like they all do seem of a kind. Then Marlene also says Cabriana noted here, other than being referenced as Halima's former companion, the only other info is in the Wheel of Time companion, and I think Semirog's musings as she tortures her in Lord of Chaos. I do want to send condolences to Jody on the passing of his friend Marlene. Sudden death is always difficult. Life is a dream from which we all must wake. Shade and water to you all. Marlene, aka Shield Mom. From one Marlene to another.
Thank you, Marlene.
Jono Pierce continues her recent run of contributions with the following. Good day, Mo. Hope this finds you all well. Something that I've always wondered reading this part is if Rand's name got recorded somehow or how else Moiraine would have found him. They mention half-truths being recorded and I'm like, what details might there have been? Since Kari was never ever pregnant with Rand and no one would have recalled her giving birth, but if all the girls doing the recording were asking about any woman with babies, maybe someone did, or maybe someone saw her with baby Rand and got her name that way, it would be cool to see the entry and what it said. If that's not how Moiraine found him, then how? I wish there was an in-between 2 or 3 books for those Moiraine years, but alas, we only get the beginning and the ending.
That does make sense, because as you started that, I thought like, oh yeah, they're giving, other women are just giving, oh, this woman also had a baby, and this woman had a baby, and I know a woman in the next town, and it seems logical, possible at least.
Kind of. I might be completely wrong here, but didn't Tam take the baby back to the Two Rivers Rand, and Kari was there? I can't remember that Kari, or I can't say that was she traveling with the army, because she was part of the what was they? The
Eleanor Companions.
Eleanor Companions, yes.
Yeah,
so she
like
was
the second
there.
in charge.
Okay.
I read about Kari after this, and yes, she traveled with Tam and the soldiers in that campaign in the Isle.
Well, then the only other option was baby thief. Gotta hide it.
Well, I mean, if she was there, which she was, Tam could have found the baby and just given it to her like that day, right? Like Tam might not have
look
had
what I
to look
found.
after the baby at all. Yeah.
Free baby.
Well, okay, we'll get to it, but I mean, she had 2 kids before that, one that died during birth and another one that died really young. So Tam has a motivation to take a baby that is left unattended or, found with a dying Aiel mother, his wife has already had bad luck with babies. They obviously desperately want a child. Carrie married Tam against the advice of her parents, but they couldn't stop her because of Tam's reputation and his elevated status as like a decorated soldier and stuff. So they disowned her. And Tam, when he found this baby, was like, oh, finally, okay, here's a baby that we can raise as our own, because Carrie has had this trouble. And then the 2 of them with the baby went back to the Two Rivers together, and they started their life there after the Isle War. Okay, so I found a Reddit post by Reddit user Wheel of Time Wiki, who said the following. In the original short version of New Spring, here's that short story, they are mentioned as being on the list. Quote, too many like Carrie Althor. From Andor, husband Tamlin, second captain of the Eleanor Companions, took discharge. That pair might have gone anywhere in the world, and there was doubt she had a child at all. So, Moiraine is having these thoughts. So yes, there is specifically an entry in the list, and the comments about there was doubt whether she had had a baby at all. And they could have gone anywhere. Yeah, they did. They went to the arse end of the world, hidden in the middle of nowhere. And she didn't have a baby. So the stories are conflicting. She had a baby with her, but she didn't give birth to a baby. So yes, it is this like really, really tenuous entry. Interestingly, it's not in this version of Newsprint.
No.
So RJ had the thought and then took it out specifically, which is interesting.
Or just wanted to drop an Easter egg that was in one little version and never again.
Well, look, I'm going to go out. This is now my canon. That entry is in the lists. It's just not mentioned in this book. So in this book, it is in the list. That's how she finds him. She does eventually go to.
Well, first things first. What I had, based on these things, I had my own questions. So let's think about this. Does Tam and his life in the Two Rivers look like the life of a man that was given 100 golden crowns?
No, I mean, he never took the money.
But if he's on the list.
Yeah, but I mean, we were just saying that other people are saying, hey, I saw this couple. This woman had a baby, and she's not in the queue. She's not putting her name down. But they're taking down information from people telling them third person wise of somebody else that had a baby. So that's why that meant the information is misleading or contradicting. But she is on the list, and she didn't even know she was being put on the list. Kari, that is.
But Tam and Kari didn't put her on the list. Someone else had just told the story about. Okay,
and that's why they wouldn't have gone. They wouldn't have done it anyway. I think
they wouldn't be drawing attention to the fact that they have a baby with him because it's not their baby.
Even for 100 gold crowns. No.
For 100 gold, and also remember, Tam was the what was his title? He was the second captain of the Iliana Companions. He'd be a man of means, right? Like that is a prestigious unit of soldiers. They saved the king's life at some point in the White Cloak War. I think Tam had the means to go to the Two Rivers, buy a farm, and set up a simple life for themselves there without needing this. I don't think they would have been, jonesing for the cash and then drawing attention to themselves with this found baby to get the money.
Yeah.
Could be part of the reason why Robert Jordan decided not to include that in here, because it doesn't really fit Tam and Carrie's story, right? To have come here to register.
Yeah, but we can assume that somebody mentioned them and they ended up on a list.
Yes.
Even though they tried hard to avoid it. And that's the only way that, like, this is true. Like, how else would Moiraine find Rand 20 years later?
Yes.
In the arse end of the world.
All you ever hear in the main books and from RJ is that she followed a bunch of rumors and stories about who knows, right? She followed a bunch of rumors. It led her to the Two Rivers, and she narrowed it down to Rand, Mat, and Perrin because they're all sort of similar ages, and she sort of like narrowed it down to those boys because they were born, I think, within a certain time frame of that foretelling. So something brought her there for sure. It's not just dumb luck. I mean, it's also Rand is Taverin, so needed an Aes Sedai guide, lovely plot armor. What a wonderful invention the pattern and Taverin is for making plot changes. Okay, so here's the detail about Carrie and her kids. She had 2 children, a girl who died of fever in infancy and a stillborn boy. After that, she could not bear children anymore. So there's Tam's motivation right there. But Carrie died when Rand was 5 years old. Anyway, Jonna continues to say, notes about why, in my opinion, it's critical that Moiraine be the one to search while Siuan stays in the tower. As we read these next chapters, we find out a very real reason Moiraine wants to escape Tar Valon and why Siuan gets stuck. Also, Moiraine knows how to read people and read between the lines. Like when Tamra tells Moiraine that she doesn't have to tell her not to weave to get this ink stain out of her dress. Moiraine reads it as permission to do just that. But Siuan is like, nah, she was reminding you of the rules. But Moiraine was absolutely correct, and it points out a way Siuan might miss key details because she's not as adept at reading people, specifically. Siuan is way better to have the tower because, as we get hammered with here in these chapters, she's as amazing as a leader. What we read here as well is that in 978 New Earth, this is me now interjecting here, shortly after both girls were raised to the shawls, Cetalia Delarme, head of the Blue Ajah's Eyes and Ears network, learned of Siuan's natural aptitude for logic, puzzles, and codes. Subsequently, she recruited Siuan as her assistant, and under Cetalia's tutelage, Siuan soon became a political prodigy in her Ajah. So we actually read that interaction in these chapters, I think. And then she becomes really, really good at it. And that's why we also know from reading in the previous books, Siuan used to manage the Blue eyes and ears network. So that's why that all fits. So it's just more reason for us like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, this book is good here because it just reinforces the stuff we've already read. Okay, back to Jonna.
Get out of my chapters, Jonna.
Jonna goes, it's crazy that she's so young, but it's a great leader that she ends up as the Amylin anyway. Side note, I think it's awesome to see the mirror situation of Moiraine's testing scene with Egwene's accepted test scene. They both had a secret hidden notebook which had to be left unattended, and Siuan mentioned having hers also. I forgot about that. Do you remember that Egwene had the stone ring ter'angreal and the notes from Varen in her pouch when she goes, and it causes like a weird interference?
Yes.
So they both, it's like they both have this thing that they have to leave behind, but they can't call attention to it, so they're worried about it when they're going into this test, which is a good catch.
Many times during this book, I find myself thinking that I'm reading about Egwene instead of Moiraine.
Interesting, yes.
Like, I constantly, and then when I see Moiraine written there, I like take a double take, and I'm like, oh, yes, of course I'm reading about Moiraine.
It's not be part of the plot point, or not, being inserted at this stage. That draw similarities to the heaviness of the character, the similarities between Moiraine and Egwene, because right now everyone's like, okay, cool, Moraine's dead, she's never coming back. To bring her, elevate Egwene even higher up,
absolutely,
in her pathway, her quick ascension, everything else.
And also,
look, I'm not actively drawing the connections in my mind going, oh, this is like Egwene, and this is like, I'm just subconsciously
you picturing
like,
Egwene.
The story is guiding me to think like that without my consent or knowledge.
I mean, to further back up your point, Vil, it could be to show the change, because we know Moiraine from Eye of the World onwards, right? And she is hard and badass and oftentimes just like cold, like I will murder you before I let the shadow turn you, like that sort of thing. Like that's how she is. And here we're reading about her like reading Hearts Aflame or Hearts of Flame, and looking at the guards and that sort of stuff. Like she is a much more human and immature, I don't mean that derogatively, and she's just not grown as much. And so to show that even this hard, badass character that we read about before was also just a 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old girl at some point and had all these feelings, helps us subconsciously also convert Egwene from the farm girl or the innkeeper's daughter that we know into this absolute fucking badass of an eminent seat. Like, it shows that is certainly possible. Egwene's not an anomaly. Like, that is within the realms of possibility. All right, last point here from John is saying, and as for Elaida, is it because hurt people hurt people? The companion doesn't really show her to have had a terrible childhood, but maybe she did. Mayhaps, but like I said earlier, I think she's just petty and ego-driven.
Don't try and justify her behavior.
Yeah, I'm not going to let that fly either. We've just got to understand.
Not even the dark friend is going to let that fly.
No slack for Elaida.
I mean, we looked at her portfolio, and for you know, every now and then you've got to go head hunting, not in the sense of putting a head on a spike, but putting a head in your ranks. And she just failed on every level. It's just no way. Ego-driven, self-absorbed.
Totally.
There is no Black Ajah.
Yeah, I can do no wrong. I know everything. Just shut up and listen to me.
It's funny that Jonna pointed that out as well. Another point that she made was like us, because I've been gone back to listening to our previous recordings, and I was listening to the previous one. And us talking about like, so we identifying Siuan and Moraine's strengths and weaknesses and why they chose, like why she would stay behind and why chose. And then you read these chapters like, those traits serve them, but we were way off. There's no choosing.
No, absolutely not. So Jonna's last comment here is, as a favorite moment, I'll have to think on it and maybe send in a voice note. Have a great evening. Thank you so much, Jonna. That is it for callbacks and listener contributions. So let's quickly get through. We were able to skip this part last time because we were jumping from one timeline into a completely different one. But you guys are going to have to sit back as I quickly rattle off previously on Blood and Ashes. 26-year-old Lan is leading a number of mercenaries, irregulars, and minor forces from other countries. He is summoned to participate in a planned skirmish with Aiel. When his forces have taken their position, the Aiel arrive in greater numbers than anticipated and outnumber his force by some margin. But instead of attacking, they salute him at a distance, shout An Alien, and veer to the east, much to Lan's confusion. Meanwhile, Moiraine and Siuan are in attendance to Tamra Ospenya and Gitara Moroso. Gitara has a foretelling about the birth of the Dragon Reborn and drops dead. The two accepted are sworn to secrecy and sent away. Back at their rooms, they decide to practice for the Aes Sedai test and are joined by Morel before Tana arrives to summon them to the gathering called by the Amulet. She announces to them all that in thanksgiving for the continued safety of Tar Valon, the tower will be awarding each woman in the city and surrounding area who has recently had a child with 100 crowns. As there is no available Aes Sedai around, she is sending them into the camps nearest to the city to record information on each child that has been born. Moiraine and Siuan know what's up. They go to their rooms to prepare, then head to the courtyard outside the stables. Once they mount their horses, 8 guards led by a man named Steeler are assigned to accompany the two of them. After a decent ride through the city, over the bridge past some pesky white cloaks and the first camps, they arrive at a camp where they set up to take names as ordered by Tamra. It's a mess, and Siuan has to channel to amplify her voice and make everyone fall in line. They diligently take names, making some judgment calls along the way until 2 Aes Sedai, Malin and Elaida, show up, effectively ruining the camp's belief that Moiraine and Siuan are Aes Sedai. When they get down to about a dozen women, Steeler tells them it's time to leave. The women from the camp hold him and the other guards back while Moiraine and Siuan quickly finish. They manage to get back to the tower before sunset, and in the Accepted's quarters, Catherine Elredin is waiting for them and tells Moiraine that Marianne, the mistress of novices, wishes to see her. Marianne tells her that 3 of her uncles, King Lamon and 2 of his brothers, were killed that day. Marianne also says that because of this, Moiraine does not have to go out the next day. That night, she has nightmares about the Dragon Reborn and ends up spending the rest of it in Siuan's room. And that brings us to today's first chapter, which is chapter 6, called Surprises. Joe, what surprises await us in chapter 6?
Names. Very surprising names. So many names.
I have, by the way, if this saves you any time, I have gone and researched all the names, and I've got little bullet points on all of them. So if you want to stop and talk about them, do, or wait.
We'll wait until the end.
Okay.
Because there's just way too many to get through.
There are so many.
Let's just get through the end. Yeah.
All my notes for this chapter are names.
Unsurprised. Moiraine is awoken early, so I imagine she made it back to her room, or she's still being awoken in Siuan's room. Don't know. She's awoken by a novice scratching on the door named Setsuko. Not Sumeko or Samitsu, but Setsuko, who is unrelated. I did search for her name, and there's not much information. She disappears from the tower, and people assume that she made it into the kinswoman. So there could be 2 kinswomen named Setsuko and Sumeko? Yeah, Jesus. So anyway, and told that the Amyrlin has ordered all the Accepted to be at the West Stable before Third Rise. I suppose Third Rise is like second breakfast or 11sies. I don't know what the equivalent is. Somewhere around there.
Don't make me do a callback on the times.
I think it's earlier than that. It's almost second rise now, so she needs to get her ass in gear if she wants to have breakfast before leaving as well, because she's still, in your review now, the previous chapter, she convinced Marianne to let her go in the end. Like, no, she needs to stay busy. So she grabs her script, with her little ink jar and everything in it, and heads out into the hall to find Siuan already waiting for her. The news of the day, amongst all the gossip there in the Accepted milling around, is that the Aiel are really in retreat. It's confirmed now. This news came from Sheriam, and you've got to remember now that Sheriam is still an Accepted as well, who heard it from a guardsman, who heard it from a Shanaran soldier, who heard it from a courier, so it's got to be legit. But later, 3 Aes Sedai told her. So I'm like, what the fuck? Why would you say the first part if 3 Aes Sedai individually told you? One of those Aes Sedai that told her was Reimer, the yellow Ajah that we know has a fateful ending there with the Sean-chan later on.
Pura is her name now.
We don't talk about her out of respect. Siuan and Moiraine are grinning ear to ear to have another chance to get out there and hunt the Dragon Reborn. Like, since they, at this stage, the only ones who know why they're really doing it, and they've convinced Marianne that they can still go, and my uncles, doesn't matter. They're, good riddance. Sheriam, not so keen. She's also not a great rider, still so saddle sore. She doesn't want to go out there again and sit on a bench in the snow all day. But you got to do what you got to do. You've been ordered. So they head down to breakfast, where they are approached by Moiraine. They are all nervous wrecks, thinking that they've been called to the testing, and give deep curtsies, because there's a lot throughout all these chapters. Is like them thinking all the time, like we're so close to being tested, and all the Aes Sedai are saying like, "Oh, you guys are so close to being tested." So it's in the back of their minds all the time. Like whenever they get approached, like, "Oh shit, is now the time?"
Yeah.
So they are nervous wrecks. Moiraine dismisses Sheriam sharply, and she's not normally a sharp woman, and that makes them think even more like, "Oh shit, they just kicked her because they don't want her around for when they officially call me for the testing." But that's not it. She's spoken with the Amyrlin, and they both decided that Moiraine must be in shock, and that she should stay in the tower today. Moiraine starts to beg to be let out, but there's no arguing. Moiraine just raises a finger, and that's the end of that. Instead, she'll be rewriting the chicken scratch notes the other accepted have taken down the previous day. Some of these people cannot write at all. And since Moiraine has a good hand, sometimes a tad flowery, that she says, it'll keep her busy. Siuan pipes up going, "Oh, that's a wonderful idea, Moiraine." So Marianne says like, "Oh, I'm glad you concur. Why don't you join her and keep her company?" And the smile freezes on her face. And then she leads the two accepted out and up to a little room set up for this purpose. Here's your desks, here's your papers. Get to copying over all of this stuff into neat little piles. Thank you very much. They are told to have breakfast first, of course, and then come back and get down to work when Moiraine leaves. When Moiraine leaves, Moiraine asks Siuan, like, "What the hell were you thinking, suggesting that this is a good idea?" And Siuan is kind of disappointed. She's like, "What? Don't you see how awesome this is for us? My young Padawan, much to learn you still have. Don't you see that we'll get to see a lot more of the names? All of the names, in fact, not just the names we're taking down. We'll get to see everyone's names on every list. This is going to help us tremendously in our search." Siuan didn't expect to get roped in as fast as she was into doing this herself. She was hoping it would just be Moiraine doing all the lists while she's out there. But anyway, the two of them are in it now. We're best buddies, and it'll go faster between the two of us anyway. Only then does Siuan ask Moiraine, "Why would you be in shock in the first place? Why is Moiraine saying you're in shock?" And then she tells her about her uncle's dying, and of course she gets a big hug, and there's condolences, and then Siuan tells her about her uncles, like, "Listen, I understand about dodgy uncles. I've got two that my father won't even acknowledge, and when they die, I won't shed a tear either, and I'll say my prayers for them, but I'll not spend a moment mourning them. Since they don't have to go out today, they take their time with breakfast until the cooks have to kick them out, so they can start cleaning." Laris is there, the mention earlier, and you don't mess with Laris. She's there, just rolling pin in her hand. Get out. I thought that would be a great next t-shirt. Just like a sentence that says, "Don't fuck with Laris," and then just like this chubby cook cartoon with a rolling pin in her hand.
Or just a rolling pin.
Just a rolling pin.
It says, "Don't fuck with Laris."
You should know who Laris is.
Yeah.
So, Laris kicks them out, so they head up to start work. First, digging out their own lists. So they have like a system. It's very good. Yeah, dig out your own shit first, just review that quickly, and then go through them all just to find the legible ones. You don't need to copy those. They're legible enough. And they halve the amount of work. I was like, oh, good, I wouldn't have thought about that. And then they go down to deciphering what the hell these other acceptors have written. So, little side note, novices come from all backgrounds, and not all of them can read and write, which is something, you just assume Aes Sedai are these educated world leaders, but they come from all over. So when they come to the tower and they like that, they first have to be taught how to read and write, but you can't waste too much time trying to get them to write nicely. So once they get the basics done and they can read and write enough, they carry on with the studies, that novices and accepted have to do. Some Aes Sedai never get around to having a good hand. They still use clerks for every little writing thing that they have to do. The lists are extensive. I'm thinking the pattern must be spitting out more boy births than usual to make sure of them. Like one of them is going to be the Dragon Reborn. That's my opinion. Many of the entries are like too vague to be of any use, or the wrong gender, or the wrong location. But they keep on keeping on until Elaida appears. There's Elaida again. So she's just weird, power tripping. So she just reads over their shoulders in silence, like walks around just leering over them for a while, and then leaves. Never says a word. It's a hell of a day. notably fruitless, and they spend the night in fitful sleep. But the next day they return to get on with it. No one said anything to them. No one said that you should continue or don't continue, and no novices came to wake them up, so they figure, well, we're not going out with the girls riding, so we must just carry on with our notes. But they were wrong, because they haven't even started when two clerks appeared. A seasoned veteran clerk of a woman and a young man who's should keep his eyes in his head. They got their gear in hand, ready to write, and she is not happy to see that they have been double booked. The young guy gives Moiraine and Siuan a little smile and gets a warning from the older clerk. Yeah, you're playing with trouble there, my boy. You're playing with fire. Keep your eyes to yourself. So they leave, and Siuan and Moiraine get back to work. If they look busy, no one's going to bother them, is their theory. But then those two snitches go and fetch Tamra, who appears a few moments later. They both jump up to curtsy, but Moiraine forgets to put her pen down first and stains her dress with a big ink stain. Siuan is, of course, more composed, as we are learning through these chapters. She's a little bit ahead in that thing, in the composure part. Puts the pen down first before she gets up and curtsies. Or maybe she saw what happened to Moiraine and thought, oh, that's a good idea. Tamra's intention was for them to have the day off. She's like, oh, no one didn't say anything to you because we figured you'd go study or mourn or do whatever you wanted to do. If you're still like, are you still troubled by your uncle's deaths? And she replies that she's still having troubling dreams. So the truth, but not really an answer to the question. She gets kind of like a stare from Tamra, yeah, a little knowing look, like, I see what you're doing there. I deal with Aes Sedai every day. But she leaves them to it. On her way out, this is where she tells Moiraine that she sees the stain and goes, it's hard to remove under normal circumstances, and I don't have to tell you not to use the one power to do it, as you already know that. And so, like, once Tamra has gone, and the clerks as well, Moiraine turns to Siuan and says, like, yeah, did you just see? Tamra told me to channel this out. And she's like, that's when Siuan is like, no, she told you the exact opposite. So, yeah, some things that Moiraine can see that Siuan can learn, and vice versa. It's more Siuan teaching Moiraine, but there are some things that Moiraine can teach her. And she channels the ink out into a dry little ball that she's going to keep as a souvenir. So after about an hour of writing, Moiraine finds an entry, a boy born in sight of Dragonmount on the day of Guitar's foretelling and on the right side of the river. And I took note of it, Billy Mandir. And I'm wondering if he pops up later in the story, some random kid, some guy walking down the street, hey, Billy! So yeah, they've taken note of him. I'll keep an eye out for him. Moiraine notices Siuan...
Brian from Life of Brian?
Yeah, exactly, that guy. Gets confused for the Dragon Reborn all the time. It's not me, guys. Moiraine notices Siuan writing this entry of Billy into her own little private little book. And she's like, oh, that's a good idea. I think tomorrow I'll bring my own little book. So they both got secret little books by the next day. So just before lunch, they've been writing a long time, a grey by the name of Jana Malari stops by to take Moiraine for a walk. She brings up her uncles and then asks her opinion about, like, who do you think will ascend to the Iron Throne? I say that all the time. Sun Throne. Moiraine is a bit surprised that a Grey sister would ask for her opinion, but she's like, oh, I'll give it. It's like it probably won't be someone from my family. The Damondreads kind of have a bad reputation now, especially after Lamon. Like, he was really the cherry on the cake, but not just him. We're going way back now. Him and the uncles really sullied the name. And it won't be her half-brother, Tarangale, who is married to the Queen of Andor. At this point, is Morgaze? I wrote Morgaze, but then I thought, does the timeline fit?
Should do, right?
Because he was married to the previous queen and then Morgaze. So it could be either one of those queens.
He was betrothed to the daughter heir, not the previous queen, to Gran Mantir. She wasn't queen yet. She was the daughter heir when she ran away.
Anyway. And her sisters as well, so it's not Tarangale and it's not Moraine's sisters either, who are well thought of, but not that well thought of. One of them's actually pretty stupid as well, so don't want to have her in charge. Jana gives Moiraine a long, knowing stare and then dismisses her. So when she gets back, Siuan's asking her, like, what did Jana want? And she lies, telling her that she's not sure, when she knows exactly what they're after. This is confirmed because not long afterwards, during the day as well, the rest of the day, she's visited by 6 more sitters, all after the same thing, putting Moiraine on the Sun Throne. A red named Tsutama is more direct and straight out asks Moiraine if she's ever thought of being the Queen of Cairhien herself. So some of them are more suspect and asking probing questions. It's just like, hey, you want to be queen? She's like, no, I haven't actually thought of that. Don't want to be queen. That night, Moiraine has even more nightmares. The same babe crying in the snow, a faceless man calling down the lightnings, but now her on the Sun Throne, and riots out in the streets of Cairhien. It's clear the Hall has a plan to put her on the throne, and she needs to pass her test and get that shawl so she can get out of the tower as fast as possible. And that's how that chapter ends.
I've confirmed Tarangale was married to Tigraine. Mordrellin Mantier was the previous queen. Did you have anything you wanted to add about chapter 6, Evil?
Nothing specifically about what's in the chapters, but that it just again highlights the strengthening with all these names coming up. You are reminded of who is who in the zoo type of thing. And Laras, Lamgwin, and Lan. Who'd you pick in a fight? You've got to fight them.
I've got to fight them.
Fist fight.
Lamgwin wins. Ooh. Jody doesn't look convinced. Who wins in a fist fight, Lamgwin or Lan? Laras, joke answer.
Well, do I have to fight them, or are they fighting each other?
No, you're fighting one of them.
No,
I'm fighting Laras.
Chickens. You guys.
All right, there's a lot of names mentioned in here. Joe, you already spoke about Setsuko, who's the one that has openly spoken, the novice that's openly spoken of running away, and Moiraine thinks to herself, they're all caught eventually anyway. Lol.
No.
Nope. You never read about
so
Lysandre
many
again?
More of them that you are than the whole tower
Yes,
are never
they
caught.
outnumber you. Seraphel is another Aes Sedai that we read about here. She is actually in Feldara in the Great Hunt with Verin, and she helps Verin translate the Dark Prophecy, which has been a topic of conversation in recent episodes quite a lot.
Yeah?
Verin tells Moiraine and Siuan that Seraphel is the only other one to read the Dark Prophecy and that she's too caught up in ancient books to interpret it correctly. But Seraphel is also at Dumai's Wells as part of the Tower Embassy, but escapes and is later in Dorlan with Tarnafir, Catrin Elredin, and the younglings, along with the other escapees from Dumai's Wells. Reimer, we spoke about, she turns into Pura. Another Aes Sedai by the name of, I think she's accepted or a novice here, Janet. She's later one of the Saladar ferrets that spreads the story about the Reds setting up false dragons. That's her future. Joe, you mentioned here Jana Malari, who comes and talks to Moiraine about being or taking the Sun Throne. Head of the Black Ajah at this point.
Wow. So that's why she's so careful in her questioning.
She orders the torture and interrogation of Tamra. She also orders the killing of any possible Dragons Reborn. Ishamael punishes her for this, and she is eventually killed. And then Ishamael puts Alviarin in charge of the Black Ajah after Jana is killed in a Tarangril that no one knows the use of. He puts Jana in a Tarangril where for 10 days no one knows how to get to her, but all they can hear is her screaming, and eventually she dies. Nice one, Ishi.
Pretty good and brutal.
That's his MO. Joe, you also mentioned Tsutama. She had been a sitter, so the obviously the fandom wiki that I'm reading here is from the point of view of the current timeline and not right here. So she had been a sitter for more than 20 years until she was removed, punished, and exiled by the Amyrlin Marathjayan for the Red Ajah involvement in gentling male channelers outside of the White Tower laws. So Tsutama here is going to be probably mentioned again when all this rogue Red Ajah stuff is happening. Along with her, also two other Red Sitters, Tovine, who we know as now Logain's warder, and Lyrene Dorellin suffered the same fate. And then when Elaida takes power, shortly after being elected Amyrlin, she recalls Tsutama, Lyrene, and Tovine back to the tower. Their exile had lasted for around 17 years. Tsutama believed to some degree that Elaida was involved enough in the vileness to have also been that she should also have been punished for it. So she unlike Lyrene and Tovine, Tsutama considered the possibility of taking some sort of vengeance on the entire Red Ajah and even the entire White Tower. Tutama also was elected eventually again as the highest of the Red Ajah following Galena Casban's prolonged disappearance and an erroneous report of Galena's death. And then the fact that Tutama was chosen as new Ajah head just after her return can be considered a further proof that she was still considered a very strong and influential sister despite her shameful and humiliating exile. So this Red Ajah sister was exiled after being a sitter for 20 years, then brought back by Elaida, then made the highest of the Red Ajah, and all this time feeling like I'm going to get my revenge on the Red Ajah and the White Tower and probably Elaida as well. So lots of weird undercurrents within the Red Ajah. I think she's the one that also eventually gets the letter from Seychelle, who we know is the Red Ajah sister in Kyrian that was not compelled but swore fealty to Rand and later had to write a letter to the White Tower, to her Ajah, to say, I had to do this thing, I had no choice, and sort of like apologizes profusely. Tutama is the one that gets that letter. And then my last point is Moiraine is already talking about, quote unquote, escaping the tower. You know, like she's like, this is now like, what? Take the Sun Throne? No, I got to get out. It's not like leave the tower and find adventure. It's like, I need to escape, which is telling.
I think that Jarrett, I think you mentioned that Aes Sedai. I think she's one of the three that told Sheriam about the Aiel. I think that's where her name pops up. It's Rima, Jarrett, and someone else.
Janet,
whatever.
Oh. Told Sheriam about the Aiel.
Yes, Sheriam's the one. She came and she said that she heard that the Aiel were retreating. And the guardsmen heard of it.
Okay.
And three other Aes Sedai, and that was one of those
Janet
three
was
Aes
one.
Sedai.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right, let's forge ahead to Chapter 7 called The Itch. Vil, I'm itching to hear what you have summarized for us.
A very brief summary because, I mean, not a heck of a lot happening. We're in the point of view of Moiraine and we are doing administration in the tower. They're still rewriting the names and the lifts of all those births. Tamra came, she popped in, and this leads to the courtesy, rushed courtesy by Moiraine. But she just comes to check to see what names have been noted down in the books. Tamra's purpose there was also to send Moiraine out to deliver a message to Karina Nagashi, which is obviously we know quite well, the Green Sister. And Moiraine doesn't diddle-daddle on that. She gets moving, and then you get a big description of the Ajah quarters, how they are draped, ornate, and all the rest. And then also we see warders, and there's a lot of talk of warders and some name dropping. One of those name drops is, of course, our one wolfy friend Elias, who's busy doing what warders do. No, he's actually playing a bittern. Ding, 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 something, or one of those things.
That wasn't
No,
Elias.
he's dueling.
He was dueling.
Fighting.
One of
In
them
the
was
corridors.
Yeah, well,
It's not even
that's
outside
Green
of
Ajah
the
quarters.
It's like, that was my point. It's like, like the Green Ajah love fighting, swords on the doors and pictures of battles, warders practicing in the corridors of the tower. It's not even in a courtyard.
Yeah, sounds right. Now, Karina Gashi's room is furnished with many trophies. Some of them still got bloodied blood on them. As you can imagine, mementos of hundreds of years of being an Aes Sedai. And that is also prevalent in the fact that there's just got little figurines of a family and nieces, I think, and all of that, who has already all since passed. So going in Moiraine's head down this avenue of not marrying and outliving everyone around you. Stepan, is the one playing some tunes, as it was not Elias playing tunes. He was playing tunes on the bittern or whatever. And Green is actually doing some embroidery. Interesting. Now, she was handed the letter that Moiraine was sent and immediately gets up. And her warder, Stepan, also immediately readies herself. Like there's that connection there of urgency. And she says Tamra wants them urgently. So Moiraine asks her if there's anything that I need to take back as a message. She says no, she'll attend to this herself. And then she leaves and she finds Siuan in the hallways, I assume, who had also delivered a message to Aisha, the White Sister, and that had the same sort of reaction. Immediately got to get up. And this is where Moiraine jumps to the assumption that they are starting to gather searches. There's a lot of assumption in that, but we'll go with it. Siuan.
I think she gives a bit of logic, doesn't she?
Like
why she thought this would be the case.
Yeah, but Siuan's questions are on that. That's like, wow, that's picking a lot of fish bones out of a herring type of thing. But anyway, the next day, 3 more such messages is sent from Tamra to all 3 also being now various Ajahs, but not the Reds, and all of them older Aes Sedai that's got, and I think that's the point, like more senior Aes Sedai.
Right, yeah.
Elaida has been raised to the Keeper of the Stole, and the 2 of them still keep themselves busy and also now set to one writing names and the other one spying on the comings and goings in the Amberlin's study, to which Moiraine was caught by Elaida, and in all caps, "What are you looking at, child?" and gets a quick reprimanding to go back to her writing. Verin has been helping out Moiraine with her sleeping, dosing her every night with some herbs. Good old Verin, practicing all of the skills that she needs. And that is pretty much the end of that chapter. Very quick and wham bang.
A couple of these are real short, like we said at the beginning. What did you want to add, Joe?
I can't remember what it was, but she's in Karene's room and she doesn't get dismissed, so she just hangs out. And then Karene starts speaking more, and then Moraine's thing is like, yeah, this is what one of the faults of the Aes Sedai is, like they just dismiss you and then don't think about you again and say stuff in front of you that they shouldn't say. But I don't remember what she said, or was it of any import? I just thought you were going to mention it, but you didn't. Moritz, did you take something down?
Not specifically about what she heard there, but she does think to herself, like, this is what we should be doing. This is how you learn stuff. Just shut up and listen.
Yeah.
Instead of like actively asking questions or anything. Just be quiet and just be out of sight, because the Aes Sedai do dismiss accepted and novices as if they're just not there. Okay, well, if that's it, then I'll just sprinkle my little tidbits over the top here. I had a good chuckle at the prophecies of the dragon were known to many people, though often known wrongly. New word. Rustication.
I have to remember that.
It has several meanings, primarily relating to a rough, rustic style or a period of suspension from an academic institution. So she was talking about, I think, penances on the farm or something like that. Like a period of rustication would be what comes of that. So it is both those things: going out of your academic setting, living a rougher rural lifestyle for a while as penance.
A more rustic lifestyle.
That's the one. Karene Nagashi was quite strong in the one power, weaker than Cadsuane, but stronger than Moiraine and Siuan. My note here is, pity Stepan has been a bit ruined for me thanks to how he was inserted into season 1 of the TV show.
I
don't care about
definitely did not want to bring that up, as I don't want to bring up that
Neither did I.
ever.
Undo. I'd already spoken about Elias and the other water just practicing swords in the corridors. So Rena Hafden is Elias's Aes Sedai. She's standing there, sort of like cheering them on as they're practicing and stuff. So just a quick reminder, she gave up hunting for Elias actively. She let him go in large part because she knew the Red Sisters who had accused him of being a dark friend might well kill him no matter what she tried to do, none of which meant she did not want him back. He was hers by Aes Sedai rights, and they were probably married, according to the fandom wiki.
Yeah. There's a lot of mention of that in these chapters, like Greens marrying their warders, Greens having, inappropriate relationships with their warders. I think there's a lot of rumors amongst the accepted.
Was it really inappropriate?
To the accepted, they think it is, because they don't know shit. Because they're kids.
I think more than novices.
Well, we're learning it from Moiraine and Siuan's interactions with other accepted. So still at that level, they think that.
Yeah. Rena also takes Jolene's place as a sitter for the Green after Elaida unseated Jolene and sent her to Ibudar to eventually end up with Matt.
Hey, so, Jolene.
Yeah, we have to. I don't think this happens, but like when the tower is reunited, I think Rena loses her seat in the hall, and Jolene regains it. We start to see the formation of Tamra's searchers, and Moiraine immediately puzzles it out. Malin, who is one of the searchers, is the older Aes Sedai that we already met in the camp with Elaida. Bad news, spoiler alert, all Tamra's searchers are killed by the Black Ajah.
I knew she was.
Yep.
When I first mentioned her in the last episode, I said, don't get attached.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think she's killed, I think Siuan or something's under her bed when it happens.
Oh, wow.
She's hiding in her room. Something happens, yeah. She's murdered in front of her.
Okay. Like Oren Ishii in Kill Bill.
What about her?
Oh, yes.
Isn't that what happens? Isn't she under the bed and the sword comes through the bread?
Oh,
bed
right.
Through the bed.
So, yeah.
Wow, I need to rewatch all of those again. It's been a while.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's barrel forth to chapter 8 called Shreds of Serenity. Joe, please shred our serenity with a chapter summary.
I thought you were to say something like, the serenity. No. Siuan and Moiraine are feeling some animosity from the Aes Sedai regarding their private lessons. Many of the Aes Sedai are not happy that they have to take up the slack left by the roaming accepted and teaching their novice classes for them. They blame Siuan and Moiraine even more as they are actually in the tower and could give some novice lessons if they chose, but they don't. So like many Aes Sedai are refusing to give them their private lessons, saying, oh no, they're busy or they can't today, or like just dismissing them. And they're noticing they aren't very popular amongst the Aes Sedai at the moment. Some Aes Sedai aren't that petty though. Karene, for example, gives Moiraine a lesson on Hawkwing's Empire, Malin on writers and philosophers. I'm not going to go into detail. Aisha is there on the laws of Shinar and Amadicia. So their lessons now are less focused on the one power. They've learnt all they can learn. They've been taught everything they can be taught because they're so close to being raised anyway. So now it's like politics and philosophy and history and all kinds of stuff that they. So they are very well versed. That's why Aes Sedai know a lot of shit. So as time passes, Moiraine wonders why they haven't been set to find the Dragon Reborn, and why they aren't moving faster. Why these searches aren't happening. But she thinks that, obviously you can't identify him yet. It's going to be hard. You can't just go and steal babies from mothers as well. You'll have to wait for him to become old enough to start channeling first. And then you would know, like, all right, so this is a guy that could possibly be the Dragon Reborn. So it's a bit early, and that's why there's no rush to do it. There are rumors all over the place about the war and many other things. Elid, this is another accepted, heard that Gitara had a foretelling that Tom and Guidon would happen in their lifetime. And she can't wait, because she wants to be a green, and she's going to have 6 warders, and they're going to be on the front lines of the battle of Tom. And everybody's like, yes, Elid, yes, because she tells everybody.
We've heard about your 6 warders.
Yeah. Like, there's a description of her. She is very easy on the eyes, and like the only problem Moiraine can see with her is that she has too much bosom. I'm like, I don't see that as an issue, but perhaps to Moiraine it is. Yeah, that's her only fault. She's too busty, but very beautiful. After Elid leaves, Moiraine realizes that Gitara had been having other foretellings. Obviously, she's been having a bunch of foretellings. She figures Tamra is certain of this last foretelling because she's heard all the previous ones and now has like a meta-analysis of all the data and can draw more accurate conclusions. And that's what we were talking about earlier in the listener contributions. Like, how did she know? How didn't she know? It's because not even Tamra knew. She's wants to be certain. She's got all the foretellings together, and this last one was really the nail in the coffin. That night after supper, they practice again with Morel for the test. They are joined by Elaida. She was not invited. She is not very impressed, Elaida that is, with the distractions that Siuan and Moiraine, or Morel, are using on Moiraine. So she tells them to step aside and shows them how we did it when we were accepted. And she is just as harsh and cruel as you would expect, and more so. Moiraine only makes it to 12 of the 100 weaves on her first run through, 9 on the second, then 6, and she can't even do the first weave by the 5th run through because she is beaten to a pulp, welts and bruises, and it's hardcore. Moiraine is left, with all of that stuff, and Elaida says she'll heal her in the morning. Along with Siuan's injuries, because now it's your turn, Siuan. So they thought, like, okay, she'll leave now, but no. So she takes Siuan under her bloodied wing, and Siuan does a bit better, but also eventually cracks. She never sheds a tear in Elaida's presence, though. It's a thing about Siuan. She never sheds a tear in Marianne's study as well when she gets penance or whatever, gets beaten. She always waits until she's alone before she breaks down. She does shed tears, just not in front of anybody. She never cracks. Elaida, at the end of all of this, is not impressed with either of them. They are too slow, and they don't have enough serenity. I can't say serenity without an Aussie accent anymore. Serenity. So that night, Morel fetches the balm. I think it's the balm that she got from Varen, isn't it? The one that they had after the first day of horse riding for their saddle sores.
Moiraine had a balm that she gave to Siuan. Morel had a balm from Varen or from somewhere else.
All right. There's bombs floating all around. Everyone's got a bomb.
Everyone's got a bomb. Who told you to put balm on?
It's part of like the necessary kit of being an accepted. You gotta have some balm. So she goes. Morel goes and fetches the balm and comes back along with Elaida again. She's around for quite some time, and Sheriam, and they slather the two of them up there in the bedroom because they are really smashed.
Yeah,
they are busted up bad. So the key takeaway from Elaida's teaching is that they need to be faster. Remember this. Be faster. Moiraine is convinced that Elaida is actually trying to help them. Like, she's genuine, It's in her own sick and twisted way. But Siuan is not buying it. Like, nope, she's trying to make us fail. She's not like... Moiraine is still like, no, maybe... No, Siuan is like, no, bullshit. She's a bitch. She's trying to destroy us. The others that are there, like Morel and Elaida and Sheriam, try to convince Siuan and Moiraine to report Elaida for abuse. Like, this is not okay. There's tower law against this kind of shit. She went too far. But Siuan and Moiraine, they know that snitches get stitches, so there'll be none of that. They talk them out of it, and they're not going to do it themselves. And Elaida does appear in the morning to heal them. Thanks, I suppose. But does return 3 nights in a row to replace the healed wounds and with some new ones. The two of them, that's Siuan and Moiraine, never coming close to completing all 100 weaves during these evenings with Elaida. And every night after Elaida leaves, Sheriam, Morel, and Elaida appear with more of the balm. They must be waiting outside close by, knowing what's happening. So, yeah, they got some good support. On the morning after Elaida's 3rd visit, they are woken by Marianne, who tells them that Elaida won't be bothering them anymore. Someone snitched. Elaida also nearly got some serious punishment for her actions. Mortification of the flesh was requested, but escaped punishment, as it was ultimately deemed that she was not found guilty of punishing or coercing them with the one power. If anything, she would have been found guilty of helping them cheat for the test. Cheat? So this makes Moiraine even more nervous for the test. Like, during all these nights, she never got close to completing it, and is like, are you saying, like, Elaida was actually giving us a much truer representation of what the test is going to be like? Oh, shit. So now she's even more worried that she's never going to pass. Yeah. So, like, is that what it's really going to be like? They practice then on their own now for 2 more nights. Still not getting through the 100 weaves, and Moraine's worry grows and grows and grows. An icicle in the tummy. They don't see Elaida for those 2 days that they're practicing by themselves until they pass her in the hallway on their way to lunch one day. They curtsy, but only get a silent death stare in return. She obviously, Elaida that thinks that it was them who ratted her out. And Moiraine thinks to herself that we have acquired an enemy for life. Yep. All right, you have a lifetime enemy. A week after Guitar's foretelling, spring seems to break through and the snows begin to melt. So the new spring is coming. Moiraine thinks that this is the limit. A boy born within these 10 days. FYI, 10-day weeks in this book. So the boy born within the time of Guitar's foretelling and the melting of the snow, those 10 days, anyone within there could be the Dragon Reborn. I don't know why she thinks that. Maybe it's just like an omen, she thinks, with the snows melting. And yeah, I don't see any evidence to suggest that.
Maybe the wording of the actual foretelling had something about snow.
I don't know. I don't recall that.
There was wording in the snow about the boy screams.
He cries in the snow. Because that's right. Correct. Because even the snow on Dragonmount melts, but that's from the
and she says this,
itself.
Right? Except for the very top, right? So like the slopes.
Except for the top, yeah. So there's no more snow on the slopes of Dragonmount. Very good, Villy. Thank you very much. That's obvious now. What a dumbass I was. No. So yeah, no more snow for a child to be born in. So it's got to be between these 10 days. And as soon as she thinks this, the lists start proving her right as they get shorter and shorter and shorter. So the accepted are going out, but coming back with very few names. And then one morning, Marianne appears on the gallery in the acceptors' quarters as Moiraine and Siuan are heading to breakfast and formally pronounces, Moiraine Damondred, you are summoned to be tested for the shawl of Aes Sedai, the light to keep you whole and see you safe. And that's how the chapter ends.
Ooh, boy.
Oh, it's go time, girls.
It's go time. Willem, what you got?
A lot of focus on Elaida. There's a tremendous amount of, I feel, considering every role that every person plays, I know some of them die, the Aes Sedai in the tower, but Elaida seems to have a very big role in here. Early animosities. It feels like she doesn't want them to succeed. Beatings and not healings until the next morning, so that the lesson is driven home.
Shit, hey? Like she's just so shit.
She's such a shit human being.
Person.
Like,
You seem surprised.
No, I'm not surprised.
I know we go on about this, but I mean, this
Elaida.
It's
Since day one.
Not even the treatment of a sister. This is young and up and good.
Yes, she's in a position of authority.
Future prospects.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
That makes it extra bad.
Just terrible.
The confusing thing is this, Phil. When she says to Siuan and Moiraine, I want you to pass and you will pass, she can't lie about that because she's sworn on the oath rod.
Yeah.
So she must actually want them to pass. Those words can't be untrue. So, like...
Maybe she did until she got ratted out. And then during the test, she's like, no, fuck that now.
Yeah, because in the test we learned that Moiraine, at least Moraine's opinion, is that Elaida is specifically trying to make her fail. So maybe at this point, you're right, Joe, maybe she did want them to pass. But it's the way she's going about it is just so wrong. She's such a freak of nature.
Just bad people in the world, man. Some people are just assholes. Can't help it.
Yeah, she didn't say, I want you to pass the test. She said, I want you to pass wind.
Pass away.
We misread it. Pass away. Lots of passings.
I want you to pass. I mean, if she's in her mind thinking that, she would be able to say those words without wanting them to pass the test. She says, I want you to pass. Yes. She could be convincing herself that she wants them to pass, shift this mortal coil, within the test.
Like, I mean, honestly, that doesn't seem like the help of anyone that wants to see you succeed. And because she's feeling so insecure, probably.
But then at the same time, steel sharpens steel, like that idea that she pushes Moiraine so hard that maybe that's what she needed to actually do well in the test that we will get to. Maybe she did help them.
Because they were too slow and they didn't have enough serenity. And those are the two things that they need. Because, I mean, even during the test, and Villy will get to it now, like she thinks that she has to do it quickly. And in one of the times, she's like, that's the fastest she's ever performed that weave.
Yes.
Is during the test.
Yeah.
So, Elaida did help?
Let's get to the test. I didn't have many notes there. I said,
Yes.
like, they had acquired an enemy for life, and my note was like, the world had, right? Like, Elaida's got such a chip on her shoulder. This, like, dent to her ego would just harden her even more. Anyway, let's read about this awesome test in Chapter 9 called It Begins. Vil, please begin with your summary of Chapter 9.
All right, we're still in the point of view of Moiraine as we've been all along. We are in the testing site now. Moiraine is, I wrote the word cocking herself. She's
Shitting herself.
shaking like a shitting dog. Because they are being led to the dungeons. I mean, the lower levels of the tower, but I like to refer it as dungeons because it's down there.
This test takes place on the lowest level. So, yes,
the
very much
dungeon.
bowels. Yeah.
Moiraine is of the opinion that she might fail, but at least she's got no ability to fall back to that.
Yeah.
Feels like a bit of a cop-out thinking there at that moment.
Big old
But,
safety net.
Safety net, nobility, life is easy.
Yeah, there's
Swan,
1%,
not so much. Now, it's a long walk, a lot of descriptions, a lot of basements, but very importantly noted, when in the more recent books we've gone through, whenever they've gone down to the basements, it's filled with dust. It's forgotten about. Over here, it's still clean. It's still a visited area.
Well, this corridor. Because
Degradation of the tower.
Yes, there are cross corridors
ones
and
that
stuff
are
that are not even
used.
lit and stuff. So, I mean, this one to this very important Angreal probably still in use. There could be other areas down there that are not. That could be dusty.
100%.
When I'm going to go with that, there was a stricter regime of cleanliness and no rats.
20 years is a long time. A lot of dust can accumulate in 20 years.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
But finally, they get to a very large set of doors that's likened to that of a fort. No visible latchings or anything, but there's a bit of channeling, and the doors open. Inside, we've got a circular domed room out of white stone, which I can only assume to be marble. And in the center of this room is a oval-shaped ring that is stationary, described as what my daughter would call unicorn colors. So for me, I'm envisioning something like made out of opal, like, you know, the gemstone opal, like it changes with how the light hits it. And then, of course, there's 7 sisters from each Ajah, and Tamra, of course, is there to welcome the initiates, and the formalities start. As with any formalities in the RJ world, it's done in the birthday suit, and she gets told to strip herself down to her bare nothings. That is Moiraine, and this is where she thinks about the notebook in her pouch. And oh shit, I hope they're not going to rummage through my stuff and read and find this, and I'm going to be in so much trouble. But she carries on, getting undressed, getting ready, puts it all down on a little stool. Last thing she takes off is her Aes Sedai ring, which she had never removed until this moment. That's very nice there. She gets explained to this test. It's kind of like a video game. You look for the stars, go to the star. As soon as you hit the star, you do battle and you channel.
Quest
And,
marker.
Quest marker. And Naya, remember what must be done. Go to the sign, touch Sidar, and get on with the job. 100 weaves in order. Time to go. The 7 sisters start channeling, and the orb starts spinning. Now, would it be in a circular way or as like on its axis?
I also thought on
Because
its
I'm
axis,
thinking like you got to walk through it. So that
gotta
she have
time
like
that well.
wait, jump.
It's like a revolving
Or-
door, you know, just got to time it.
Jody, I was about to say that.
I know.
Yeah. Not a good explanation of that.
Yeah, if you're not used to revolving doors, they can be quite daunting.
Well, that's why they made them a lot bigger. Back in the olden days, they used to be quite small, like at the banks. They'd crush you and break your ribs.
Yeah.
In the
Yeah.
Superman movies. You could change your clothes in there if you were fast enough.
Right. Moiraine is the only one now watching her. She gets out of the final bits of a dress in the ring. Composed, she's ready, she starts, and she steps through the terangrial. test 1, level 1. Nude and bad men, I named it. She gets some clothes. I'm not going to, I suppose it's only 3 of them really to go through.
Yeah.
She's dressed as Lady Moiraine. It feels a place of nobility. She's in the Sun Palace, and then she can't remember why she's there, but then she does remember why she's there, and then moves towards the star, and 3 bad men appear, ruffians. They leer at her. They don't particularly do much, but the first weavers want to box them in or block them off, and the star appears again above the door, and she moves out, and she gains level 1 and moves on to level 2. She is now in some sort of fortress corridor of a tiny village that seems abandoned, hot and sweaty, in a whole different environment. So in this one, she finds eventually in the stones carved into the ground the star. As soon as she gets there, it's still empty. There's nothing, and she gets enveloped with like a vine with
brambles or some
or
thorny
brambles.
vine.
Yeah, something that you can imagine comes out of the blight, and easy enough to burn this thing, but then you burn yourself. But then in comes the twist, some death head spiders, which I can only assume to be something like a hourglass spider, blue knoopie spinnekop, what do we call it? Yeah, redback spider.
Redback, Black Widow.
Black Widows,
Black Widow is the American name. That's right.
The marking on them is it looks like a little human skull, which is where they get their name.
I wish we had those for real. That would be just amazing. Anyway, very deftly, she's got to do little weaves of fire, and all of this is to do a main level weave to get rid of whatever she needs to do, as well as learning to weave other weaves at the same time. But she gets that through. She zaps them. She gets level 2 magic, and then finds the star. We move on to the level 3 test. She's well dressed, at least at this time. There's no nudity. Strange room in the dark, and she tries to find the star. Eventually finds a doorway. A long time, I think, stubbing toes and missioning through the dark, I'd imagine. She finds a doorway with a stone wall that's paved and leads her into a square. The air now is moister than an oyster. It's very humid where she is. And then the level 3 baddies appear, and they Trollocs. She's read about Trollocs. She's heard about Trollocs. She believes Trollocs are real at this point in time, but she's never faced a Trolloc. And it is battle time. A lot of weaves, a lot of zapping, a lot of fireballs, hand movements, and all the rest, while she's got to do her test weave, which I'm not sure exactly what she had to do. But eventually she decides to dance a jig on the star, which moves her body efficiently around to fireball all the baddies and gain level 3 mage qualities. We go through a lot of these levels until we eventually come to level 99, which is not in my chapter. End.
Nice, thanks, Phil. Joe, what you got?
Those 3 men that come towards her in the first test, all greasy and slimy, just like, the worst imagined kind of men that the Aes Sedai can think of.
Yes.
And the one guy walks up to, they're straightening their jackets,
raking his hair. Because she starts off fully clothed, but with every step her clothes start disappearing to the point where she's eventually fully nude. Yeah.
And he's like, "Ooh, I'm going to try my luck with this naked lady. Straighten my hair. That'll fix everything. She'll fall at my feet."
In real life, those 3 would have turned on each other to try and be the last one standing. You got anything else you want to add in there, Joseph?
No.
The 6-pointed star is the chapter icon. Don't think we would have seen that one before because it's unique to this test. I had a comment here that Moiraine is so committed to finding the Dragon Reborn, she's already trying to figure out that she'll still continue with the search even if she fails the test. Like if she's put out of the tower and she's committed. She's got some inside info here. She's going to find this dude. I also just love how the low-level corridors of the tower are dug out of the rock itself. Like they're not made of stone or anything. They are cut out of the rock of that island, which is really cool.
Give me a bit of a question. Like there's a lot of white, the white tower, white stone, but the corridors aren't white. They dug out and it's never referred
they
to
probably
as
just
white
lined
stone.
it, It is a round
because
domed
the
room, so
room
you
is
could
white. Yeah,
you could like with a dome shape, you could potentially, just stack the stone in such a way that
it is bright white inside there.
When Moiraine thinks of her ring since winning that, she had worn it even when bathing. It made me think of a movie we've quoted on the show before, which is Natural Born Killers. There's a scene in a motel or something where Mallory's taken off her ring because she's in the bathroom, like showering or something, and Mallory says to Mickey, I just took it off so I wouldn't snag my hair when I washed it. And Mickey goes, okay, baby, look, even if that ring pulls out every hair in your head, it stays on. If it tears out my eyeballs, it never comes off. Every great thing we do starts with these.
And they were also rings of snakes.
Yeah, I think one was a snake and one was a skull or something. Like they were.
No, I think they were both
snakes. Okay.
And before that, when they do their own wedding, they cut their hands on the breach.
I love that
like
scene.
Little,
I love that movie.
Little, like animated two snakes coming together,
yes, like around the blood in the water. Yeah.
Around the blood in the water. That's a fantastic movie.
I think I've watched that movie once when I was 14.
You should absolutely go watch it again, Jody. I think it still holds a Guinness Book of Records for the most edits, like just like the most like cuts and like editing film onto film and stuff. It's genius.
Yeah, quite a lot of that film was shot with actual 8mm cameras, like
all kinds of crazy different shit. When Oliver Stone, when he was scouting locations, was doing a bunch of mushrooms in the desert, like scouting locations for it. So like it is a trip, literally and figuratively.
I think that was surpassed, Moritz, the number of cuts by Taken 2. Just to get
really?
Liam Neeson to look like he's running and jumping over fences took about 5,000 cuts.
Yeah,
I turned the movie off at that point because my brain couldn't handle it. That was so unnatural.
Anyway, back to the task at hand. Let's finish off this test for the shawl in chapter 10 called, aptly, It Finishes. Joe, we're not quite finished yet, so please regale us with a summary.
I will regale you with the awesomeness.
You better regale.
This cruel test. We return to Moiraine 99 weaves later. Thanks for not making us sit through all 100 weaves, Roger. So, she's found the 100th 6-pointed star. Laid out with river stones in what appears to be the Aiel Waste. I got Aiel Waste. Sweat immediately evaporating on her skin, all that kind of stuff. I was like, oh, that's Aiel Waste 100%. She's been through snow, great cities. I'm summarizing here.
Please do.
Forests, swamps, plains, hovels, palaces. She's been naked, tied up, fighting snakes, crocodiles, wild boars, lions, leopards, and hornets. She's seen it all, never remembering the trial that came before. So every time she finishes a star, she forgets it. And then Hess is like, what am I doing here? And then the next one, it goes, I wonder where I am. What's happening? Something that happened before in Vidi's chapter as well is like Anaya is channeling that thought into her head. That's why she knows every time that she starts a new one what she has to do.
Yes.
Otherwise, because if she's forgetting every time, then
that's right.
How's she going to remember to do it?
And that was kind of weird as well. When Anaya does it, she's also just murmuring under her breath. She's not telling Moiraine, always do this thing. She's murmuring the words to add to the weave because that's what she's imprinting on her.
Yeah.
She's not talking directly to her in the moment.
Settles into the back of her head like, you're going to forget everything, but you're not going to forget these things. Don't run, don't dawdle, and go to the star.
I read the word murmuring twice. I'm like, fucking speak up, Anaya. This is important. Just mumbling. But yes, you're right. It's because she's putting it in the weave.
Yeah. Exactly. So, Moiraine carries the wounds from every encounter, though. She doesn't have the memories, but she has all the wounds. All the bumps, bruises, scratches. She's got a sword slash across her ribs. Like, she's been through some shit. But she can't remember how she got them. She just feels them very keenly. And only remembering that she needs to keep going and what weave to complete next. She's in a small garden now and sees the next star she sees the next star next to a marble fountain and begins her weaving. While she's busy, her father appears, shoulders slumped. He calls out to her, tells her her mother is dying and she must come with him. She wants to weep and rush into his arms, but she does neither. Instead, she completes the weave. She sees the last star above some fluted columns and heads towards it. As she passes her father, she tells him that she loves him, and please tell my mother I love her too, and she brushes past him. She can feel him tugging at her sleeve as she passes, and she walks beneath the columns that he came out of, where the star is above, and comes back out into the testing room, a bright white testing room where the lamp lights blinds her from all the reflection. And all the memories of what she has just gone through come rushing back at once, enough to make her stumble and fall emotionally and physically. She is, again, busted up. So maybe Elaida did do some assistance there. Give her some of that. Marianne intones, "It is done," 3 times, claps her hands, the ritual stuff. "Let no one ever speak of what has passed here. It is for us to share in silence and with she who experienced it." She tells Moiraine that she'll spend the night in prayer and contemplation and will don the shawl tomorrow. Anaya approaches her to offer healing, to which Moiraine asks, "Did I pass?" And it's like, "Yes, you passed." And Anaya tells her that blushes don't count towards breaking calm. And that's when Moiraine realizes, like, oh, this is not like a standard test that everyone goes through. This is something that is tailored for each person. That's why all her tests, well, a lot of them were her naked, because they know that Kyrenian, and specifically Moiraine, are so prudish about sex and nudity and all of that stuff. So for her, it was tailored specifically to that, and that they all saw exactly what she saw. And she remembers that, oh, yeah, there was that one where some handsome man swept her up and kissed her thoroughly. So they've seen everything. So she gets all red in the face again. So while this is all talk is going on, Varen encourages Anaya to deliver that promise of healing, because it looks like Moiraine is about to collapse. And Anaya's like, oh yeah, okay, enough talking, healing time. Varen hands Moiraine her clothes, and Moiraine quickly and discreetly touches her belt to see if her little book is there, and it is. And then my mind goes, hang on a second. Remember in our main story when Varen's like, oh, Rand's the Dragon Reborn. It's because she knows from here. Like, Varen read that book. I'm 100% certain that she knows from this point that they're searching for the Dragon Reborn. She's figured it out over 20 years, and that's why it came to her so quickly, because she already knew. That's my theory.
I mean, she would have to have memorized the whole book.
No, but she knows. She just looked at the book and figured it out. But the next time we speak about it is Varen when she meets Moiraine, and she goes, "Oh, Rand's the Dragon Reborn," like, because she knows Moraine's been looking for the Dragon Reborn because she read the book here and figured it out.
Isn't Varen like actively participating in this test and everything? Like
I don't think Varen was participating.
She's the brown sister in the room.
She's the brown sister. I mean,
yeah, and she's holding the book.
It's a great.
Picked it up.
She can't read the book and channel the test at the same time.
Dude, she read that book.
And Miriam is there,
Mark
like,
my words.
overseeing the stuff. So there's no, Jody. Like,
the book.
I mean, I'd love to
Read the
think
book.
that, but I think her Black Ajah alliance has probably had something to do with that.
I think she's
read the
smart,
book.
and I think Varen gives the reasons in the Great Hunt why she thinks it.
Because she read the book. That's why.
Okay.
She mentions that her last test, Moiraine mentions that her last test was very cruel. And Yuan, a yellow, just randomized die in the room, from the yellow sitters, agrees while throwing a very displeased look at a departing Elaida. And she's like, that bitch was trying to make me fail. So that whole mom dying scenario, that was Elaida's little touch towards the end. Anaya and Varen escorts... What?
Sorry, Elaida definitely had a lot of horrible touches in that.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe she added extra bits, like maybe the spiders on top of the strangling weeds and stuff. Like maybe she's just adding like extra stuff on top of it all the time. But yeah, I also read it, Jody, as specifically that last scene.
Yeah,
that cut really deep.
That's the one that Moiraine figures was cruel. Like not this.
Ironically, I feel like that's exactly the kind of thing that this test would elicit. You know, like if the accepted test is anything to go by, right? Like the emotional toll they put Nynaeve through and stuff. It's like exactly this kind of thing. So anyway,
even the other Aes Sedai thought it was cruel.
They
so
did.
Maybe it's not usual.
And other things that we are not privy to, right?
Yes, the other 95?
9? Oh, the ones we didn't see.
96.
Yes. 96.
The ones we didn't see. 96, yeah. I had to count it on my fingers. So Anaya and Varen escort Moiraine back to her rooms in the accepted quarters. When they leave her, she runs to the little room where Siuan and her were copying the names just to look for Siuan, and finds some clerks there who have no idea, first of all, who the fuck Siuan is, let alone where she is. I don't know you. I don't know what your friends' names are. So eventually, she runs over to Siuan's rooms to find them empty, and she's like, could it be? She can't find Siuan anywhere. Could Siuan also have been called to be tested? She searches from room to room and eventually finds Sheriam and Morel, who tell her that Mirianne indeed came to get Siuan a little while ago for her test. They ask if she passed, and when she tells them yes, their attitudes change immediately. Like, they stand and almost go into a curtsy, like touching their dresses as if to curtsy, and Moiraine realizes, okay, that's it. This friendship is at an end, until they, of course, also gain their shawls. But there's a gulf between them now, like, I'm Aes Sedai, and they're accepted. This is done.
Totally.
She returns to her own room to find lunch on a tray, enough to feed a Trolloc, which she promptly scarfs down. Healing is hungry business.
Shades of Matt.
And shades of Matt, yes. 3 roast chickens. She eats a whole loaf of bread at the end, mopping up the sauce. So she's also dead tired, of course, but she can't sleep. She's so worried about Siuan. So she starts to read Hearts of Flame, which is there left by the little fireplace. But she can't concentrate enough. I know the feeling of staring at a chapter or just one paragraph, and then after half an hour going, did I even read that? What have I been doing? Yeah, exactly that. The afternoon passes, and she hears accepted coming and going outside her door, chattering loudly until they hear that she's passed and she's in her room. And then everything goes quiet because they're like, oh, an Aes Sedai is in the room. Got to keep quiet. So everyone's attitudes are changing towards her. They're already behaving as if she's Aes Sedai, which she is. I know it's only tomorrow that she gets the ceremony, but she is. She's not dead, and she didn't disappear in the ter'angreal, so she's Aes Sedai. Eventually, her door opens to admit Siuan. Of course she passed. It was as easy as falling off a boat into a school of silverpike. Billy, we really need to figure out to see these silverpike in action one day.
I think you just got to envision a barracuda.
I think so, eh?
Yeah.
But like smaller, and they travel in groups like piranhas.
Yeah, big as barracuda, and they do travel in massive schools, and they are vicious. So I think that's the inspiration behind Silverpike.
Yeah, I'm envisioning them smaller, like a flying fish size.
No, not enough damage.
Yeah, but if there's enough of them, that's where the damage comes from. Anyway, sidetrack. They talk about they don't talk about what they've experienced and never will. The secrets start mounting and mounting and mounting from here on out. But they are excited to be raised together. They're like, shit, man, this couldn't have worked out any better. So after a little celebratory dance, holding each other's hands, I just imagine them going, ee! And they're just jumping around in circles, having a little jig. Moiraine tells Siuan that she's probably got some food in her own room too, and she must be starving. I know I was. But Siuan has another plan. She's acquired a bag of mice that she thinks would love to snuggle with Elaida in her bed. Moiraine is like, no, I don't think we should be acting like this. We're all Aes Sedai now, after all. We're practically Aes Sedai. But Siuan's all like, practically, schmactically. This is our last chance to do a little prank against her. And we are going to do it, and we owe her. She 100% tried to make us fail. I know she did with me. So, too right. Moiraine agrees, but only after Siuan has had something to eat. And that's the end of the chapter.
The chapter icon is the mice. I was so confused when I saw it. Like, what the fuck are these mice?
I have a thing where I'd never look at the chapter icons. Like, you told me the previous one was a star. I'm like, okay.
I always do.
I mean, they are big clues.
They are.
Sometimes big, but they're always a...
Not in this book. In this book, it's completely just...
Yeah, some of them are a bit
chapter,
like,
I feel like.
what?
Other than the Valkyrie, the one for Lan in the first chapter, I don't think anything was pretty much like pointed towards a person like we've got in the main series.
Well, we're sort of stuck with Moiraine the whole time. So, like, how many Moiraine-centric ones can you really have?
True. Very true. I don't have any smatterings to add to that. It's pretty straightforward.
I had a couple little ones. I had a chuckle at the fact that Moiraine's dad is, quote, very tall for a Kyrenian at almost 6 feet tall. Very tall.
Monster.
Yeah. Moiraine mentions here that she likes Varen, which is cool. This is good. It makes me feel good. Had a chuckle at Hearts of Flame, which is that same book that she sort of gave the other novice shit for when she popped her head out of the Imminent study and found her reading it. Also, Swan's favorite. It's not just Moiraine. Swan is also a fan of the book. Then I thought it was quite, like, it really hit me when Moiraine has to consider that if Swan does not pass the test, she might just not see her again. She might be dead.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, her being gone for this test is like, fuck, I didn't get a chance to speak to her again. It's my best friend in the world. You know, they're really close. They're pillow friends and everything. So, like, I mean, they've got a really, really tight bond. So, like, for her to realize, like, fuck, Swan is in the test and she might die now. I might not ever actually see her again. That really hit me. And then I just love everything that Moiraine and Swan do, like, in complete lockstep, you know, as we'll see in some of the chapters here. Like, when I made this note was before I'd even gotten to, like, how they actually officially get raised, which is just another example of this. But it's so cool how they move together through the novice and accepted and Aes Sedai tests. Anyway, enough of my blathering. Let's continue onward to chapter 11, called Just Before Dawn. Vil, can you give us a chapter summary before we reach dawn?
No, we're not reaching dawn. That's in a different book world as well.
Okay.
It's just normal dawn. Just before dawn is when they come and get you so that you can do your whole thing. So still in the point of view of Moiraine. They are in their rooms after the mice prank and contemplating in prayer all night. So they tired, yawny, red eyes. O's are tired. First note, very tired. There's not been lots of contemplation, maybe some, but not a lot. But it's time to get the balance of the formalities out the way now. And Moiraine has packed up her few possessions, personal possessions, because as it turns out, everything else that's given to a novice and accepted, it's going to get recycled back into the system. You'd think that they had enough clothes there with how few people are in the tower, but anyway, we move on. 7 sisters are there to take her. Again, Elaida is there. One of the other ones, Jeanne, and then I ran out of names. She follows without any words and assumes that Swan is in the same process. They find each other. They go together in silence back down to the dungeons, right down to the lower levels, to the very same room that they were doing their test. Tamra's on the inside there, and who comes here? And both of them reply that
they said it's they say their name and it's to claim the shawl.
Yes, there was a reply
like
from both of them. Both replies. And what are they to do? And they're there to do their binding. They're both hand in hand. You know, they have it all figured out how they're going to do it. They want to go and get this all done together. The oath rod is present. We're drawn to its presence as it's on a little black pillow. First, they have to walk through the revolving door ring again. Now, it's not revolving at this point in time, but it's narrow. Therefore, they can't walk in through it together. So they probably tossed a coin or something, but they figured it out. Moiraine is going to get made first. She's going to do the first swearing. So Swan is going to walk through the oval, whatever, ter'angreal first. Now, then they get to Tamra, who then gives them the chance to hold on to the oath rod, and by the light of my salvation and rebirth, oath is sworn on all three of the oaths. The last one of not using the power as a weapon unless defending my life, the life of another sister, or the life of my warder. I mean, if you're green, you don't just have one warder, you've got multiple warders.
But if you're defending one of their lives, then that is your warder?
One
all
at a
under
time.
threat? Only one at a time?
You only
Anyway,
save one
I'm
at a
just
time.
Yeah. Yeah, this is just
I
going
was
to sort themselves out.
lawyering the oaths like a Black
Yeah.
Ajah would. And then they were told to rise now and choose your house. And now I'm happy that in this case they do their own choice. They don't get a sorting hat put on their head that puts them into Slytherin or something else. But they both go hand in hand and walk up to the Blues. The rest of the party or the other sisters are then told to leave. Only the Blue will remain. That includes Tamra, because she's a yellow, or was a yellow. So Aeldra remains. Edith kisses Moiraine and says some words. Lelaine is there, does the same. Aeldra makes a joke about pies, that there's a whole lot of old customs that Leanne, we see Leanne is there, Blue as well, and Rafaela. So these are all names that is in our current cycle. Leanne takes care of Moiraine to initiate or walk her through the welcoming into the house situation. Rafaela takes Swan, and then there's some jesting about Rafaela wanting old things like, did they have to walk naked? I couldn't figure out actually in the end if they had to walk naked with only the shawl again.
Yes.
But the hallways are emptied out.
Yes.
Apparently, back in the day, they will also walk naked to all of the other Ajah houses to go and, I don't know, poke fun at them that they didn't get selected. And apparently the Greens can be quite...
This just gave me a massive flashback to when I was in boarding school. There used to be a tradition where I was in a boys' school for a year, and in the high school, like, there was a tradition where we had a sister school which was like a couple kilometers down the road. The guys would do a nudie run from the boys' hostel across town in Port Elizabeth, like, so in a city, and like some of it's like along the main road, like Cape Road, is from Grey to Collegiate.
Collegiate. Oh wow!
And then like go and like, I think like either sing songs or like shout things outside the girls' hostel, and then have to run back all in the buff. And that's what this reminds me of.
Well, we had our standard 6 hazing included the final end where we had to dress in a nappy, literally just a nappy, toweling nappy, no shoes, no shirt, no nothing. The girls were allowed, because I mean it was in a technical high school, so there were very few of them. So mostly it was bare-chested young boys, and I had to walk from the town hall to the school, which was like 10 kilometers, all the way to school. And when you get to school, you had to crawl through shit, and I don't know what else. And the whole school was in the pavilions.
Yes, watching.
Man,
yes,
rough times.
Good times.
Back to the story, though. Anyway, so they're back in the Ajah headquarters, the Blue Ajah quarters. The next person that they will meet is the First Selector. New title, never heard of it before. Turns out that the First Selector is, what's her name? Mo?
Edith,
yes. And then she was also, but not always, she was also a sitter, or is also the sitter in this instance.
They don't. They make a point of it being that the First Selector is never a sitter.
Right.
For the Blue. Because they like to use everybody's abilities to the fullest, and they can't.
And the Blue Ajah is the second smallest in numbers only to the White Ajah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where that chapter pretty much ends.
Cool. I thought First Selector is a pretty goofy Ajah head title because they're all different. Each Ajah calls their leader a different title. First Selector is goofy. What is the green one? Is it the Banner General or the Lord Commander General or something like that? It's a military term.
Yes.
With the Reds, it's the first. Yeah.
The first amongst fools.
No, sorry, the highest. That's it.
The highest among fools. Still works.
Anyway, Joe, before I start rattling off my bullshit here, did you have anything you wanted to say about Just Before Dawn?
I just wanted to clarify. I don't know if the clarification messed me up about them walking naked. It's like they don't walk naked.
They don't. No, they said there's a lot of the old traditions that they don't follow anymore.
Yes.
Yeah. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay, Jody, since you don't look at the chapter icons, if you had to guess what the chapter icon for this chapter was, what would you think?
Aes Sedai?
Yes, Flame of Tar Valon. Good guess.
I looked at it now after you mentioned it.
You
checked the last two chapters.
Jane, who knocks on Swan's door, is one of the Black Ajah sisters with Leandrin's group. She is the one that messes with the Balefire Tarangril in Tanchico, but is later given orders by Moghedian in Amador. She is eventually killed by Tom during the last battle. Tom Merlin kills one of the Black Ajah sisters from Leandrin's group. That's pretty cool. But here she is, loads of Black Ajah sisters being unveiled here, hey?
Oh, yeah.
What else? That compression from taking the oaths can last up to a year. That feeling of it pressing in on them. That's pretty hardcore. Varen refers to the Blue Ajah as seekers after causes, which I thought, yes, exemplified by Moiraine, a seeker for the most important cause. Rafella, who's mentioned here in the current timeline, is one of the Aes Sedai in Tyr, negotiating with Darlan Cisnera and the Terran rebels.
Mm-hmm.
Lelaine is mentioned here, all smiles and friendly.
Yeah.
Moiraine thinks to herself, imagining the tower completely empty became all too easy. It would be one day if matters continued as they were. Don't worry, Egwene's got you covered. Not going to happen. And that is it. So we can roll on now to our final chapter for this episode, which is chapter 12, called Entering Home. Joe, bring us home with the last summary for this episode.
Alrighty. Oh, got the wrong tab open. There we go. The first to welcome them home is Anaya. Welcome home, sister. We have waited long for you. Kyron Stang is there too to welcome her home, or them home. Mm-hmm. Everyone is so nice that it truly feel like they've come home. Mm-hmm. After they are welcomed home 39 more times by the gathered sisters, lots of hugs and kisses and welcomings, they are shown to their rooms/apartments by Cabriana. Mm-hmm. They've put them next to each other, obviously. Swan and Moiraine would have rooms next to each other. They are told not to talk to anyone just yet. There are some secret rules and customs and things that we need to tell you about first before you can carry on and just flounce around the tower all willy-nilly. So be careful. They note Capriana's meekness and deference as out of place, as in stark contrast to her fierce gaze. It's clearly not her natural personality to be this meek. So Moiraine is already eyeballing everything.
Something's afoot.
Anaya and Kyron join Cabriana. I was like, ooh, Anaya, Kyron, Cabriana. Mm-hmm. So this book is specifically written to answer the mystery of the previous book. Mm-hmm. You read these three names together, you go, oh shit.
It's even mentioned that they speak to each other with an ease that spoke of a long friendship. Very
front and center. That's pretty laid out for you here. This is where you go, okay, that's why. Join Cabriana and showing them to their rooms, and along the way they talk of how the Blues actively evaluate every sister's talents and uses and put them to work in the most effective ways possible. This is where they talk about the First Selector not being a sitter.
Right.
Because she's the best of them. She needs to concentrate on other shit, not sitting in a hall all day.
Yeah.
Talking shit with everybody else. Everybody pulls their weight here. There's a job for everyone. You will be assessed and you will be assigned. And they're like, shit. I have different plans. May I be excused from this? No, you may not. Moiraine is starting to think the Blue Quarters may have as many undercurrents as the Sun Palace and the rest of the tower. They have some pretty kick-ass rooms, according to my standards, and probably Siuan standards, not so much Moiraine's Sun Palace standards. Kick-ass rooms, although grossly decorated. And when Moiraine is asked by Cabriana if she likes the rooms, Moiraine realizes that the lie that she does like them won't form on her tongue. So she changes it to, they are more than adequate. Too much lace and ruffles. Everything's very ruffly in her room, which is not a huge fan of. The three Aes Sedai, that's Anaya, Cabriana, and Chiron, excuse themselves to leave Siuan and Moiraine to eat their breakfast that has been left in their rooms. They always have breakfast left in their rooms. But as soon as the door closes, they look at each other and both agree that food can wait. We need to speak to Edith right now. Apparently, we need to find out what these secrets are. Let's go. Of course, they need to get changed out of their accepted whites, their testing whites. And Moiraine finally dons her kassira that she has not been allowed to wear since entering the tower as an initiate. So she's now starting to look like the Moiraine we know in her blue dresses and her kassira, and she's ready for action. She meets Siuan in the hall, and they ask another sister that's passing by, Natassia, for directions. She gives them the directions, but with a sour twist in her mouth that they read as like a dislike for Edith, but then what we learn is a dislike for the subject matter that she knows that they're about to hear. And they head to Edith's rooms. Edith shows them to some chairs where they wait in awkward silence for some time while she warms her hands at the fireplace. She's clearly not keen for this conversation. Moraine's Chironian training schooling her to be quiet, listen, and observe. So they wait. Siuan is all antsy in the chair. She's all fidgety. Could be also due to the fact that her skin feels like it's about to pop her eyeballs out of her head. But finally, Edith turns to address them. They've been told now for the last 6 years not to talk of another sister's strength in the power, not to even think about it, not to even think of their own strength, or least of all, to compare their strengths. But all of that goes out the window now. Forget everything you've been told and taught. We totally do that all the time. And the more you do it, it's going to become second nature to you at one point. And it is the basis on how we treat every other sister that we meet and we come into contact with, and how they treat us. It is the basis of being an Aes Sedai. So they learn here about deferring to stronger sisters, and the bigger the difference in the power, the bigger the difference, and the bigger the penance if you fuck up. Like, you can get in some serious shit if you don't follow these rules. Moiraine now connects this to Elaida's deference to Malin, Rafella to Leanne, and of course now Cabriana to literally every other sister in existence, having now felt her power, remembering that, oh shit, she is weak as shit. So that's why. There are some more questions from Siuan, but Edith hates to repeat herself on this matter. She's not going to talk about it anymore. Just if someone is stronger than you and tells you to do something, regardless of her Ajah, you do it. The only exception being, if you are part of an embassy sent by the tower, then you obey whoever was put in charge, regardless of their level.
Feels like a sneaky little retcon for the embassies sent by the tower and Saladar to Rand. It's spoken of at the time.
Yeah. I mean, we're just thinking now about what's happening in Cairhien at the moment with Sashel. She's just taken over. But then again, what's her name, who was left in charge, wasn't the head of an embassy by the tower. She was just left in charge by
Catswain.
So I don't know.
Is it Samitsu?
If that counts. Is it Samitsu? Oh, shit.
God damn it.
So many names.
Call back.
All right. Outside in the hall, right after their little meeting, the two of them realize they are already quite high up among the sisters. Like, hey man, we're pretty strong. So we're already like in top 10% of all the blue sisters and the rest of the sisters. So they thought they'd have to start at the bottom and work their way up. And it's like, oh, sweet. We just skip basically to the front of the line. And we're both pretty strong. And we're still going to get stronger because we're still quite young. And they figure like over the next 5 years, we're going to be even stronger. And I'm like, epic cheat code. Awesome. But they both agree that prudence is still required. There's a lot of nuance in what they were told, so they'll still have to step carefully. Siuan's like, what's new? We've been stepping carefully for 6 years. What's a few more months? until they figure out exactly what all of this is like. Like, where is the line between deference and obedience? But before they can even get back to their rooms and their breakfasts waiting there for them, they are about to learn firsthand about deference as they are approached by Satalia Delarme. They feel her power level, and she is very strong. Stronger than them, definitely above them. And Satalia knows this and is a no-nonsense kind of woman, calling Moiraine a pretty little doll and snatching Siuan away to test her pattern-seeking brain. She's heard great things about Siuan and her way of like figuring things out, so she gives her a little test right there in the hallway. Like, gives her a paper with a bunch of Spanish playing cards, which are different to normal poker cards. I recognize the suits. That are written down in no particular order to Moiraine. Moraine's kind of looking over Siuan's shoulder. She goes, like, they look like playing cards written down. Anyway. But Siuan figures it out almost immediately. She hasn't played the game because she's a poor fisherwoman's daughter who can't afford cards. But she has read about this game and figures out that someone wrote down the sequence to a winning play. Satalia is impressed. The card game is primarily played by the rich, like the noble. So Moiraine has probably played this game and couldn't figure it out. And while Siuan has only ever read about it, but has already figured it out in less than a minute. So she's like, hey, come with me. I have some more tests for you. No breakfast for you. So, practice that deference now, Siuan. So off they go. Moiraine is too worried. So they have a mission to find the Dragon Reborn. Now that they're full sisters, they need to be out there like in a week, 2 weeks tops. She's got plans to leave. They won't have to worry about all of this nonsense happening. So she eats her breakfasts and is interrupted by Anaya, who has a summons from Tamra and an offer of healing to help with the tightness of the oath rod. Like, when she walks in, she's stronger, so Moiraine stands for her, just in case. She's still trying to figure this out. But she doesn't get the feeling from, like, Anaya that it was necessary. Like, the difference in power is not enough to warrant, like, that kind of thing. So she's like, all right, but better safe than sorry. So she's still we're just learning the nuance that they have to learn as well. So she goes off on her way to see Tamra. She wonders, what does she want? It's obviously to set me on the mission to finding the Dragon Reborn, isn't it? Here we go. Finally, I get to do some stuff. And then we leave her and we jump back to Siuan. Third POV for the book in chapter 12. She's been in Satalia's office or study or whatever now for hours and has been given a job she doesn't want. And she's protesting. She'll be there tomorrow at second rise to continue deciphering piles of documents. Like, you're very good. Tomorrow you'll be here. She's dismissed for the day and sent to her rooms to eat her cold porridge to find Moiraine there, because now hours have passed. Moraine's also looking pretty dejected. Why, Moiraine? Tell us why. Tamra did not give her the Dragon Reborn mission that she dreamt of. She's been put in charge of distributing the 100 gold crown bounty that she was taking lists for. Siuan wonders if Tamra is onto them. Like, she wants to prevent Moiraine from running off right away. But Moiraine thinks it's, like, no, my accounting skills. Like, I was learned this in the Sun Palace. I was taught accounts and everything, and that's what Tamra said. I think Tamra's onto you guys. She's no fool. She knows you young guys are up to no good. Moiraine asks Siuan what she's been up to, and Siuan grumbles about her bunch of old reports that mean nothing. She's had to study, like, 40-year-old reports about what happened in Tarabon or Saltea and Altara. Moiraine immediately figures out that, hey, those are Eyes and Ears reports. Satalia is the head of the Eyes and Ears network for the Blues. So that's how Siuan gets in charge of it later on. So Siuan tells her to keep her mouth shut. Like, don't tell anybody about this. And also your bounty, dealing out the bounty is not a bad job. It'll be a couple of months. How long could it take you to give out all that money? And then you can be on your way. But Moiraine tells her another secret she's been keeping from her. That it doesn't matter what happens after that, because it seems like the Hall has a plan to put me on the Sun Throne. I don't have a few months. I need to get out of here as fast as possible. Moiraine feels strongly that she is not the one for the job. Queen of Cairhien, that is. And that Cairhien will not accept another Damondred on the throne, especially an Aes Sedai Damondred. Like, she feels like she's trapped. She's got nowhere to go. And she's very dejected. So Siuan comforts her by saying, look, they'll find a way out. And is surprised that the Oath Rod allows her to say that. So she thinks it might be a lie, but if she believes it's true, they haven't figured this part out yet. They don't know what we know. She believes it's true, therefore she can say it. So nothing they can do about it now, so Moiraine offers Siuan some healing, which she gladly accepts. Enough of that tightness. Now we jump over. Then we join Lan very quickly. They are part of the party that's been tracking the retreating Aiel, and they are approaching, or close to at least, within sight of Kinslayer's dagger. They are being commanded, them and a bunch of other soldiers, by Pedron Denial, who Lan knows is not a fool. Like, he's also figured out that, listen, it's stupid to go after the Aiel. You do not want to be fighting these guys in the mountains if you can avoid it. You should not be fighting them at all, but especially not there. And he figures Pedro is also not a fool. And he's right. Pedro also decides there's no point in engaging the clearly retreating Aiel. That this war is over. In fact, most other countries in the coalition have already decided that the war is over, and they've already fucked off home. Like, there's very few soldiers left. But we all know Pedro to be a thorough man, and now he's sure, so officially an end to the war. And yeah, so they do get confirmation from Pedro and will not be sent into the mountains. And as soon as they get that confirmation, Lan looks north immediately. Bukama sees this and he's like, no. Take it easy, young buck. He tries talking. He's talking out of this, talking this young fool out of jumping from one war to another immediately. It's like, dude, I'm old now, man. I need a break. I need some rest.
He needs a year holiday.
Yeah, we're taking a holiday. Lan agrees, like, okay, we'll take 1 or 2 months. It's all I need. But Bukama's like, no, listen, dude, I need a year. So they compromise on 4 months. They'll head down south to warmer lands. Bukama's all excited. He's like very happy. He's like, oh man, we didn't even get to see the Stone of Tyr. I'm going to go see the sights. We could go eat in all the finest restaurants. He's going to do some tourism to the max. So yeah, they'd been in Andor and Tyr, as we know, but they were fighting Aiel. They didn't have time to do the touristy things. See all the sights. So he's keen to go and do that. But Lan is not as excited. Typical. He doesn't speak much, only when spoken to directly as they travel. He feels the pull of home and just wants to return to the Blight to fight his endless war. Oh, and also wants to avoid any encounters with Aes Sedai along the way. Nah! The end.
Lol.
Lol. What a foolish little man.
Willem, what you got for us?
No, it's surprisingly little, to be honest. Yeah, we had views. Pedron Denial went back, proclaiming that he chased the Aiel back over the spine of the world.
God.
That's where he got all that gusto. The company will advance at a trot and all that.
That wasn't him. Maybe he taught it.
That was Jeffrey.
Yeah. Well done, Jody. That was a very long and thorough recap of that. I don't have smatterings to add to that.
Thank you.
Okay. My smatterings are along the lines of Gabriana being a pale-eyed sister with light golden hair is not how I imagine a sister named Gabriana Macandes.
No.
Then I had a thought Edith's sitting room was larger than theirs. This had me thinking, were there other clues to the fact that Edith was the first selector of the Blue Ajah? Because remember, this is like a really tightly kept secret, but wouldn't servants notice these things? Like if one of the rooms is more generously appointed than the others, or like is, privy to more privileges or anything along those lines? Like, wouldn't servants pick up on like who's calling the shots here? The idea of the Ajah heads being secret just like seems like a weird, unnecessary addition to me. It didn't have to be that way.
Unless each Ajah has their own servants that is loyal to them.
And is never allowed to leave the tower and speak to anyone in their families or anyone else ever again.
No, they got to swear on the oath rod or something. You come here, sit in this chair.
Or else it's the chair of remorse.
I had some notes on Satalia, but it doesn't really matter. Jody, you covered most of it. Swan swears at one point. She goes, "This blood and bloody ashes" or something.
Blood and bloody ashes.
She gets a faint taste of soap in her mouth, like a Pavlovian response, like she's done it so many times where she's sworn and then got a soap in the mouth. Also, a note here, Swan could have kissed her. In fact, she did.
Indeed.
Which seems more noteworthy than just like a peck on the cheek or something. Like it seems like a I don't know if I've been show pulled.
They're made out of
something.
little.
Yeah.
I think you've been showballed over here.
It's open to interpretation.
It is. And I mean, RJ himself has said that, yes, there were plenty of these sort of like comforting relationships between novices. It's like a coping mechanism that they have because they are cut off from their families and stuff. So there were relationships and romantic relationships that sort of blossomed in that environment. But that's it from me. So did you guys remember to pick a favorite moment? Jody shaking his head. Villy also shaking his. All right. So let's start with Vil.
Yeah. Elaida, mice in her bed.
Yeah.
Elaida being reprimanded for...
Oh, yeah. Always good. Punishment for Elaida. Always a high point.
Punishment for Elaida. And Swan saying blood and bloody ashes, giving a shout out to us.
Yeah.
I think that's...
Lots of honorable mentions.
Oh, got to save myself a callback. Sorry, Joe. It was Samitsu who's with Seychelles in Kyrian. I looked it up while you were talking. Sorry, Vil. Keep going.
No, there we go. No, it's not favorite momenty stuff. It's just it's like story, lots of moments.
There's lots of moments. I mean, Moiraine becomes Aes Sedai, like that's huge.
Exactly.
Swan becomes Aes Sedai. You already also see Swan. Oh, she's going to be a good administrator, head of the eyes and ears. Okay, yes, and she will eventually become imminent. There's a lot of cool stuff that happens at the end of the Isle War, land heading south. Like there's fun stuff.
The Anaya Kyron Cabriana solution to the mystery.
Yes.
If I have to choose a favorite moment, I'm gonna go with the last one I just read.
You do have to.
The most recent one in my most recent memory is Bukama just stoked to go on holiday and go visit the Stone of Tyr and do all touristy things.
Go to the finest restaurants, as you said.
Indeed.
Did we settle? Was it Bukama or Bakamu?
It's Bukama.
Okay, so Jody got it right. Just going to throw a little spanner into his...
He got it right in this episode, yes, he did. My favorite moment, I'm actually going to read from the book because it was rad.
Mm.
It is when...
Brother Maynard,
consult the Book of Armaments. When Moiraine is doing her test, and she's in that... The final one Villy read about, I think it's when the Trollocs are attacking, and she's fighting a whole bunch of them, and her natural inclination is to move in between them, and because as she starts moving, she breaks into like a court dance, and the description goes like this: dancing she wove, hurling fire with both hands, killing Shadowspawn with both hands. Sometimes they came so close that their blood splattered her face, sometimes so close that she had to dance out of their way as they fell. Dance away from their down-curving swords, but she ignored the blood and danced. Like, I can just imagine her, like, moving in between, like, all these Trollocs are running into this courtyard, and she's just, like, dodging, like, dancing in between them and, like, fireballing them to the extent that, like, they're so close that the blood is, like, splashing over her face, and she's still just dancing, like, almost like a warder, like what I imagine, like, Rand or Land, like, because, like, all the sword movements and stuff are also always described as a dance sort of thing, and I just imagine, like, this is Moraine's moment to show her skill with the power.
I'll give you some mental imagery for that one, backed up by a movie. Remember the old movie Blade with Wesley Snipes?
Of course.
Beginning of the movie where the poor unknown souls led into the rave club, and then the blood sprinklers come on.
Yes.
Blood sprinkler dance.
That. What's also surprising that I keep forgetting is that whenever I picture somebody throwing a fireball, I just imagine them like getting like a Trolloc getting hit and then being on fire. But in this book description, she's blowing them in half, decapitating
and the heads
some. Like
off
when a fireball hits you,
them,
like their bodies get ripped to pieces. Like limbs are flying, torsos are being obliterated. Like
which is just, it makes that image so cool. Like that, like the violence juxtaposed with this like graceful court dance that she learnt in the Sun Palace. Like that was just a really cool scene to me.
And if she bears the wounds and of all the physical things when she comes out of the thing,
stuff.
So she came out, so she's still splattered in her face with Trolloc blood when she walks out.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah, that's cool, hey?
Hardcore. Yeah.
Then we've got a favorite moment as promised by Jonna Pierce. And it comes in voice note format. Yeah. It does. And it goes a little something like this.
Good afternoon, all. It's Jana here, sending in my favorite moment from this chapter set. It would have to be chapter 7, The Itch, where Moiraine and Siuan get back together after both of them having taken messages to different Aes Sedai. And Moiraine pieces together instantly that she's sending these Aes Sedai to search for the boy child, and that he will not be brought back to the tower. That obviously Tamra doesn't think that she can trust the Reds. Siuan, is much better at physical puzzles, and Moiraine, is like, it should be so easy for you. And Siuan is like, yeah, I got this puzzle from somebody else that they couldn't solve it. They gave it to me. You want me to give it to you and give you a try? And Moiraine just, is like, no, thanks. And then sticks her tongue out at her. Like, it's perfect. It's just a cute little moment because Siuan knows dang well that Moiraine wouldn't be able to do anything with it. Anyways, have a great day.
Thanks, Jonna. That is another great example of some of those little scenes we see between Moiraine and Siuan, like when they've just passed their test. And I think, who was it, Joe? You were saying like they were holding hands, basically like jumping around in a circle. And like, like there's lots of these moments, both enjoying the same sort of like raunchy book, like all these little signs that they are still young at this stage and are still subject to the young urges, like sticking your tongue out at someone that you feel is making fun of you and that sort of thing. It is pretty cool, especially considering like how we know them to be in the main series, right? Like how far and how jaded they've become at that point. Thanks a lot, Jono. Now, to our other listeners, send us your favorite moments, your thoughts, your theories, corrections, or just say hi. You can do all of that using the social media links in the episode description, or just go straight to our website at bloodandashespodcast.com, where you can leave a text message or a voice message like Jonna did. Please review, rate, or comment on the podcast in your favorite podcast app so it climbs the rankings in the algorithm and reaches more people to join our crew. And when you have done all of that, reach out for new spring so you can prepare for next time on Blood and Ashes, where we will cover chapters 13 through 19, another 7 chapters. The last chapter is called Pond Water. I think I know what happens in that chapter.
Ooh, me too. I know. I remember a pond.
To the pond.
I just see one of the chapters, chapter 15, is also called Into Canloom. Is that the one that we just read about in the callbacks, which is a city, I think, in Kandor, where all the gem exports and the clockmakers reside? So maybe, Jody, you retained some reference to clockmakers in Canloom from these chapters from the last time you read New Spring.
Sure, that's highly likely.
That's definitely what happened.
Never.
All right, everybody. Well, you'll have to tune into our next episode to find out if Jody's been carrying this granule of information for the last 20 years. But until we do that, I will say to everyone, sleep well and wake.
Cheers, everyone.
Good evening.